world gone insane. An upside-down civilization that cannot be real. A world of madness and terror.
It's the Dana Gould Hour.
Start sleeping ahead of the curve with Casper. Get $50 towards select mattresses by visiting casper.com/Dana and using the promo code Dana at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. No, really. Happy 2018, everybody. Let's get to it. Season 7 of the Dana Gould Hour podcast underway. We have a great lineup for you today. The hilarious and recently married Matt Braunger is with us. Look for Matt's new comedy special live in Portland later this year. And comedian and human woman Emma Arnold is with us. You can get her album Shut Up Calvin right now, wherever fine LPs are sold. We also have the hosts of the podcast, The Daily Zeitgeist, a podcast that comes out every day. Jack O'Brien and Miles Gray, along with their producer, my friend, and co-host of the excellent podcast, Ethnically Ambiguous, Anna Hossnieh is with us. Me? Well, I'm busier than a one-armed traffic cop with a skin rash. Stand Against Evil is coming back for a third season on IFC, and I'm getting right to it, thinking up a bunch of junk. I also have some other very exciting projects in the work, but I'm not at liberty to discuss them at the moment, as we say in show business, but I assure you they are super groovy. If you're in the Washington, D.C. area, I will be in Arlington, Virginia, at the Arlington Draft House on Friday and Saturday, February 2nd and 3rd. On February 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, I'll be in Denver, Colorado at the Comedy Works. And on March 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, I will be right here in Southern California at the good old Irvine Improv. Big invite to all my OC peeps. Come on down to the Irvine Improv. For ticket links for all of this malarkey, toddle on down to danagould.com and check out the live appearance page. You'll be glad you did.
Dana Gould Hour. Free and worth it.
Welcome to your favorite drive-in theater and a sparkling new season. Watch our screen and local newspapers for all the fine shows coming this way. Show after show will feature the latest hits, the biggest stars for fun-filled, pleasure-packed evenings. Relax, come as you are, and spend an enjoyable night out with the entire family. No parking problems, no babysitting problems. And there are always tasty snacks at our modern refreshment stand.
Thanks, folks. And once again, welcome back.
It is a typical January day. High atop Mulholland Drive? Mulholland Boulevard? How long have I been living here? Mulholland Drive. It's the name of a movie. It's the name. Yeah. It's the last thing David Lynch did that had an ending. Mulholland Drive. I live right above it. There's a lot of sand and dirt on the road. It has that end of winter in New England, like March, April, just dirt and sand everywhere. Yeah. Feels like that today. Painting a picture in your mind so you know the kind of conversation we're having. And the conversation we're having is with two estimable stand-up comedians, writers, actors, and friends. You know him. One of the, I guess, founders of the Bridgetown Comedy Festival.
Yeah.
You'd say that? And has a comedy special coming out later this year entitled Finally Live in Portland.
Yes.
Matt Braunger is with us.
This is the sound of my voice.
Our other guest is someone whose voice you will in no way confuse with Matt's, because she's a human woman, a frequent guest on the podcast. You can buy her comedy album "Shut Up, Calvin" at your local record store or Woolworth's listening station. She's also completing post-production on her special, Emma Arnold.
This is the sound of my voice.
Oh, Jesus. I should just put Matt, your voice.
That would be great.
Just switch.
So this is where the two divorced people sit down with the recently married guy and have a good, hearty chuckle.
Thanks. It gets better.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You recently just got married.
Yeah, 2 months ago.
Now, how old a man are you?
I am 43.
Okay, so I was married before you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think that's bodes well for you.
Yeah, well, I feel like the daddest dad joke in my act is I'm like, all my friends are like, why rush in? You're only 43. But when you know.
And Emma, you got married. You were 11, right?
I was 11. I was the perfectly Idaho reasonable age of 20.
Oh, the Idaho child bride.
Yeah.
Sure.
I got married.
By the way, you should note
11.
Idaho child bride at the Echoplex all weekend.
Oh, they shred.
That's my band.
That's a great name. Idaho child bride is a great name.
For like a metal band?
Yeah.
It's terrifying sounding. Like the rage you would have as a child bride? Anyway.
If you remember, much earlier this month, when Donald Trump said that thing about why can't there be more people from Norway coming into the country?
Sure.
I think he said something else. Danny Bland, who's a frequent guest on this podcast, posted like some Norwegian death metal band.
Oh, was it Barzum? The one where the one guy blew his head off and the other guy made a necklace of his skull?
Yeah, I think
Barzum
more
was
people
a
from
real
Norway.
deal. Well, they were also they set churches on fire.
Yeah,
it
nothing
was
wrong
this whole
with
movement of trying to get back
wrong-
to the days of the Vikings.
Nothing wrong with it.
Hey, freedom of religion.
You know the old story about the gay, the joke about the gay Viking? What's wrong with Lars? He just pillages.
That's great. That's really funny.
Pillage, real pillage, till the cows come home. Pillage, pillage.
You know, have you had those jokes that you have in your head and you're like, I can't say that joke. Like my dumbest one was was there ever like a pirate or a Viking that was like, I am raped out. I'm so tired. I mean, you guys go ahead. I'm so...
Well, there's a story. John Lennon told this story about what it was like in those early Beatles tours. And he goes, it was just Satyricon. It was just endless. And he goes, I remember one night we were staying in the Hollywood Hills and I climbed into bed and Joan Baez came in the room and got into bed with me, and I just looked at her and said, sorry, Joan, I'm all fucked out.
Jesus. That's my cousin.
Please let it have been Joan Baez and not Joan Baez, who I know listens.
Sure. Oh, yeah, she's a fan. She's a fan, but she lived. That is so funny when you like that generation, certain groups of baby boomers. You're like, you've done everyone and everything.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, and that is true. And it's literally, I guess, who was it? Oh, it was Paul McCartney. I stood next to him.
Oh, yeah.
At Jimmy Kimmel Live when he played on Hollywood Boulevard. Yeah. And it's just like, this guy's slept with more people than I know.
Right.
Even casual acquaintances.
and it's so funny, like when you're like a 17-year-old boy, you're like, wow, that's the best. And you grow up, you're like,
that sounds
great.
exhausting.
I mean, sex is awesome, but the whole thing of in Keith Richards' book, Life, or just Life, he had this great story about how, and he was like him and like Ronnie Wood were always like, Mick just wants to fuck everyone, and we never understood it. Like, why? When does it stop, man? And even when they were younger, there's this. He was telling this story of like Keith Richards, like just in his apartment, and two women show up to his apartment, and it's raining, and he's like, "Oh, do you want to come in out of the rain?" And they're like, "Yeah," and they come in, and they're just sitting there having tea, and he's like, "Okay, then, bye." Like they didn't do anything. And these girls were just imagining this rock demon to tear her clothes off and do whatever he wants. And he's like, nope. Just having tea.
He's like, the tea's decaf,
not even
just so you know.
Yeah.
It's all a lie. Yeah.
Yeah, it really, I know it says mint, but it really is minty. It really.
It'll get you. That mint will really get you. You got to be careful. Ooh. That is some strong mint. I got to take a nap.
I'm all minted out. When you first looked down at your hand with a wedding ring on, I took it off like the first 3 nights. I go, do you take your ring off before you go to bed? I was so confused.
Oh, I do. I take mine off before I go to bed.
No, I just leave it on eventually.
I like it. I mean, I take it off when I go in the shower, though. And I'm afraid of losing it in a hotel room really bad when I'm on the road. But
I lost mine in a divorce. That was my old joke.
The slowest way.
I lost my wedding ring. Yeah, I was in one of those. And then I rub my hands together like I'm washing them. Divorce. See, that's the mislead.
I remember when I saw you at it was like one of the Walking Dead premiere, maybe season 3 or something like that.
Probably, yeah.
I was with John Roy. You and your wife were still together, and you were talking about some show that you just sold, and I was completely joking, was like, to HBO? And you shook your head so hard and your hands waved so loudly. It was as if we were on tape and you didn't. No. I can't answer that right now. This is audio, as you can't tell that I'm shaking my head vigorously.
I remember when my ex-wife got the job at HBO. So somebody emailed me with the following message: maybe now you'll get the success you deserve.
Weird.
It's like, wow, that was wrong 11 ways.
Oh, yeah. God. Jesus. As if this was some plan you had.
That's all. 1, not about me. 2, I thought I was successful. 3, that's not how you get successful.
No, you do not. It's not. Oh, man.
4, C2 again.
And that is so evocative of men. That it's like our definition of success is so stupid. Mick Jagger's fucked 1 billion girls. Who cares?
Exactly. Yeah, I always think that because this morning I was telling you at assembly at my daughter's school, I was talking to Ziggy Marley, who's a dad at the school, and then Jay-Z butted in.
That's amazing.
And Jay-Z and Beyonce just, hey. I ended up having cake with them. We were at a birthday party at Cake Mix, which is this, like Color Me Mine, but with cakes. Mm-hmm. Kids have parties and they decorate a cake and suddenly I look outside the window. There's all these paparazzi outside the window. And I'm like, what? And then they're there with their kid.
Yeah.
And I don't know them from Adam. But my daughter goes over and sits with their daughter because they're friends.
Because he was like, go sit with Beyonce's daughter.
Yeah, that's the plan. Who cares about the wife at HBO? That's the move.
But then I have to sit with my daughter. And I'm literally sitting them with exactly the way I'm sitting with you guys.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, they don't faze me.
Sure.
Name one Beyonce song for me right now.
I can't.
But that's exactly who they want to sit with.
Exactly.
Yeah, and eventually I cracked a joke and they laughed. But then after we left, I had Beyonce and I were both on Star Search. I could have totally dropped that. I could have totally dropped that, cool. And we had a long conversation.
I think I did a benefit for your kid's school, if I'm not mistaken.
Our school is the 17th largest economy in the world.
Okay, nice. Well, this one has like Christina Applegate's kid.
Yeah, no, I know. I've done that show.
She ran backstage to say hi because we were on Up All Night together.
And they live right down. One of them lives right down.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. But it was that thing of I did have that feeling of like, why are you doing a benefit? You guys don't have any money. Like I recognize 7 people in the audience right now that could buy and sell me. Kind of thing.
Oh, totally.
But it just,
they go to Wonderland, I think, which is right down the hill, and which is funny, known for being right around the corner from one of the most heinous murders.
That's what I think of when I think of Wonderland.
Exactly.
I'm like, they named a school after those murders.
They were good murders.
To be fair.
Yeah. Was at that murder.
He was. They made him go, evidently.
Yeah.
I lived around a corner from...
Quit dragging your feet. I'm not.
It's my wiener. And that's how he would say it. He's so sick of having that giant hog. It's just my dick again.
Yeah.
Caught in the drainage chute.
Why do you have all that cash? Bets I've won from Milton Berle.
Oh, I lived around the corner from the La Bianca murders.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Is that house still there?
Yeah, it's a house.
Oh, is the house still there, or did they bulldoze? Because I know they bulldozed.
It has a massive gate in front of it. I bet. And I found out, I was like, oh, yeah, a month before I moved out. So I was like, just walked up the block and looked at it.
Yeah, it's a house. Mm-hmm. But they bulldozed the Tate house.
Yes, I believe so.
And changed the name, yeah. Mm-hmm. But when somebody said that, what's his name from Nine Inch Nails, like, rented it to live there.
Yeah, Trent Reznor.
Yeah. I'm like,
well, he built a studio in it too.
Yeah, but to me, I was like, there's nothing cool about that.
Yeah, what are you doing?
Yeah,
it's
what a cool thing for a 13-year-old to do.
Yeah. Right?
How old are you?
No, and it's
no people were murdered. Yeah. It's not cool at all. It's a terrible.
No, I mean it's like I feel like you and I both love. There's one reason I listen to the podcast a lot because you love like horror movies and scary things. But it's got to be kind of imaginatively interesting. Yeah. Or it's got to have like a thing to it. It's not just like 5 people were actually just killed.
Yeah.
That's it. You know, like,
yeah.
It's like,
exactly.
No, nothing written on the walls. Nothing.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
No.
Just murder.
Mm-hmm. No Beatles songs misspelled. It is yet another in a series of brisk autumnal days here high atop the Mulholland Drive view shelf here in Falcon's Lair recording studios. I'm joined by the co-hosts of the Daily Zeitgeist. And that's daily for those of you who listen to this podcast monthly. Jack O'Brien.
This is the sound of my voice.
Miles Gray.
And this is the sound of my voice.
Those are virtually indistinguishable. And also their producer and the co-host of the podcast Ethnically Ambiguous, Miss Anna Hossnieh.
Yes,
Hossnieh?
This is the
Hossnieh,
sound of
Hossnieh?
my voice. Hossnieh.
Hossnieh?
Yes.
How long have I known you?
Ooh,
3 years?
3 or 4 years.
Have I ever pronounced your last name?
I don't know if you've ever said it.
Yeah. Well, I've been saying it wrong for years.
Okay.
Anna Hossnieh.
Yes.
And that is Iranian or Iranian?
Iranian.
Okay. I got that right.
Mm-hmm. You got it.
First of all, Anna, are you Iranian Anna or Iranian Anna? You can't mix them both.
Iranian Anna, but I've been changed to Anna years back, and that's what I respond to now.
When I'm in England, I'm Dana.
Really?
Yeah, and I get tired of fighting it. Fine.
Yeah.
Dana.
Huh. You know what's interesting? Just to go on a side little cul-de-sac. So many people here in America think if they take away our AR-15s, it's the gateway to subjugation. Mm. In England, you can't get an AR-15, and they seem to think they're a free society. Nobody walks around over there feeling
misinformed fools.
Yeah. They don't even know they're living in an authoritarian slave state.
Right.
They think they're just as free as we are. They just don't have bi-monthly slaughters. Anyway, let's go to Jack and work from Cracked onward.
Sure.
You started out with one of the more interesting podcasts that I did and that I became aware of. It's Cracked.
The Cracked podcast.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is much better than Cracked Magazine.
What?
Off-brand Matt.
Yeah. So,
can you even have this conversation now?
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, so I actually...
Nothing against Cracked Magazine.
Not at all.
Seymour P. Smythe?
I had to...
Sylvester P. Smythe.
That's right. Sylvester P. Smythe.
That's the Alfred E. Newman of
That was
Cracked?
the Alfred E. Newman.
Wow.
He was a janitor.
Right. And yet he wore painter's pants.
For some reason.
Yeah, janitors don't wear that outfit.
Right.
Whatever.
It's all right. But yeah, so I was actually charged with relaunching the Cracked brand 10 years ago, and I wasn't a huge fan of the magazine. Like, I wasn't...
I just imagined you summoned up to San Simeon, like a William Randolph, and you're in a massive baronial hall, and some man pacing at the far end.
Almost exactly how it happened.
I own the brand.
Right so far.
Cracked. And a raven flies across the room. It's like meeting the guy from Blade Runner. Do you like our owl? Is that the cracked owl? It is.
So the guy who hired me, who had a raven on his shoulder, his idea was to relaunch it as a magazine, and as an afterthought, he hired me to relaunch the website. The magazine, lo and behold, folded because launching magazines after the year 2000 was not a great idea.
Yeah, it is. It's sort of like launching a telegram company.
Right. But the website, he kind of left us alone to do our own thing, and the website took off, and then I was running that for the last 10 years. We launched a podcast like 3 years ago.
Okay, so when you say the website took off, what is that in terms of eyeballs, and what is the content? You're not doing, Cracked, what I kind of like about Cracked is, and I read it as a kid, it was basically, mad? Yeah, we're doing that.
Right. Right.
I kind of like the nakedness of that.
Right. Yeah, I remember even seeing it as a kid, because I used to get mad, like, as a kid, and always seeing Cracked next to it, and I was like, what? Why would I get this thing?
Yeah, exactly.
When there's mad, and it looks the exact same.
Because Mellow Yellow exists, and so do GoBots.
Yeah. Or there's Fiddle Faddle and Screaming Yellow Zonkers.
I mean, the brand existed from the 50s onwards. So
really?
Yeah.
Really?
It goes back that far. I think its peak was the 70s.
Yeah, mid-70s. I mean, like when I was a kid
right.
I was 12 in 76, and that was pretty much the height of Cracked.
Right.
Back when they had the Cracked building in New York.
Exactly.
Which we had in The Simpsons, being attacked by a missile, and it aired the week before 9/11.
Oh no.
Or it might have been Mad. Might have been, I'm not sure.
Peak Cracked was in the 70s. By the time it got shut down, it actually got shut down in the terror attacks of 2000, or actually not the terror attacks, but the anthrax attacks after 9/11.
That was the end of Cracked.
They were in the building in Florida that got hit with the anthrax that they had to shut down, and they were like, things aren't going that well anyways, so might as well just
that is
end
amazing that Cracked was the real victim.
Right. Well,
that's why we weren't going to go into Afghanistan, but when they closed down Cracked,
right,
an eagle cried, and that was the end of that.
And all we think about is Tom Daschle, too.
Right. Right.
It was Cracked.
That's amazing. What is the Cracked website?
So the website ended up being a lot of pop culture commentary and sort of nonfiction, comedic magazine articles, more like the old National Lampoon magazine.
And Nat Lamp was a lot of fiction, was it not? But
right. But they also had like some nonfiction.
Yeah, like Spy.
Right.
More like Spy. Yeah,
Spy. Spy is a better example.
Yeah. I miss Spy a lot. Spy coined the name short-fingered vulgarian for now Donald Trump. And that's what amazed me about the podcast as well, is you took this brand that was kind of
right,
and you made something amazing out of it. And I liken it to Battlestar Galactica. It's like, we're going to take this really cheesy show from the 70s and we're going to make something better than it has any right to be.
Right.
I really love the podcast. And that kind of stuff is to me the best stuff. It's just like really weird stuff happens to be true.
Right. Yeah.
And, but it's weird and interesting.
Right. And that's kind of what the articles were too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how many eyeballs is Cracked getting?
I'm not sure what it is now. At the peak a couple years ago, it was like 16 million unique visitors a month. Yeah. It was.
And who are these people? Are they living in a dorm? Are they living in?
I think it was like college to right after college. And then the ComScore stats, I think it was all very sort of middle of the road. It was like 55% male, 45 female, and 29 was the average age.
Yeah. It's funny. All of those scores for everything I've done, it basically comes out to Andy Kindler's joke that my target audience is men my age who are me. That's great. That's not my joke. It's Andy Kindler. It's Andy's, but it applies to me.
We were just trying to do stuff that we would like, and we weren't, we were a lot of 20-something people, so we weren't interested in what Cracked had ended up being, which is like a lot of booger jokes.
Was there a Mad website at the time? I know Nat Lamp has been abused and whored out beyond his. I mean, Nat Lamp is now like a tortoise in fishnets at Santa Monica and Gower. It's been whored to the point of unrecognizability.
reading Ghost Story by
Peter Straub.
Peter Straub.
Oh,
yeah,
wow,
never read it.
Oh, wow,
and
wow.
I'm really digging it. But it's there's this part about some mysterious guy that was a chauffeur to this rich family, but he was actually kind of like a dark mystical character or something like that. And I started thinking about Anton LaVey, and I started thinking about how that's the 60s when all these people were like, ooh, I'm a Satanist and hail Satan, like the cocktail party in Rosemary's Baby, and all the Satanists come by and just look at the baby with lizard eyes and have highballs.
Exactly.
I was like, God, what an era of terrible.
In the Dakota, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, what an era of terrible music that must have been. Because you already had, like, psychedelic music. I would say probably 60% shit.
Yeah.
Like, there's 40% that's like, oh, that was really good. That one Beatles song.
Sure,
and
yeah.
Stones foray,
Yeah.
Sympathy for the Devil is a great tune.
It was a cycle that burned through quick.
Just because they throw back to medieval times. They're all playing lutes and just garbage.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Oh, that's too bad because my Idaho Child Bride, it's mostly lutes. It's mostly lutes. We do a lot of lute work.
Now I have like Stonehenge from Spinal Tap in my head.
Stonehenge. Well, yeah, with these zombies like psychedelic album like that, it's just like
No,
yeah,
I don't know
there's
if
a lot of
because I love the zombies. I don't know if I have that one, but yeah,
well, they did some latter.
It's funny if you play like a zombies album in like a bar now. Millennials will think it's a new band and be like, well, this is great.
Oh,
because it does hold up like to the standards of a lot of what bands are trying to do now, which is
totally. I agree with you about that stuff. And it's also, I think it's because, I love horror movies and all of that stuff. The real stuff, I have a very healthy separation.
Sure. Absolutely.
No, I don't like innocent people. I don't,
No.
A pregnant woman was murdered. This is nothing cool about this.
Really bad.
Even when I would see people with like Manson t-shirts, like, no, he's
what
not
are
a guy.
you doing?
Yeah.
And I think that's also kind of a cult of personality where we have a removal between how someone is presented and what someone actually is. And
maybe one day there'll be a president that totally relies on the cult of personality.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Who knows? But yeah, no, but also to that end, people would always talk about Vincent Bugliosi, like he prosecuted Manson. Yeah, is that really the hard job?
Yeah.
Was it defending Manson the hard? Like,
yes.
In the Alabama Senate race, they would all talk about Doug Jones, like he prosecuted the Klan. Yeah, no, that's the easy part of that trial.
Yes, we can't.
The other guy's looking at a guy in a sheet with a swastika patch. This is a good boy. Like Gene Wilder and Young Frankenstein. This is a good boy.
Yeah, the irony is we have a president that let's hear him out. Let's hear both sides.
Yeah,
the guy in the white hood. But yeah, exactly. These are the easy targets. I remember there was a guy in Chicago that had a bit about seen a bumper sticker on a car that was a swastika with crossed out, like, ooh, way to go for the real tough stance, dude.
Or was that just if it's swastika and it's crossed out? Or is that just a scribble?
Yeah, right. Did someone just draw a swastika wrong? Or they just like, shit, I did something wrong.
It
looks like I'm against it now.
It looks like I support it now. I have the wrong swastika bumper sticker now. Yeah, it's so funny. Yeah, I never understood like Anton LaVey.
Yeah,
who I used to see at my laundromat.
You really did?
Yes, he lived. Well, I'd see him when I would go to the laundromat in San Francisco because he lived right around the corner.
That's amazing.
Down in the Richmond district from
Holy
where
crap.
Alex Reed and I had an apartment. I don't know if you know Alex.
Yeah.
He and I.
Yeah, Alex Reed lives a block away from me.
Yeah, he and I, if you've ever heard of the comedy condo in San Francisco, Alex and I started it in October of 1986.
Amazing.
And then it went to Ron Lynch, and then it went down for like 30 years. Comedians lived in this one apartment in San Francisco.
Hilarious.
And it was only 10 years ago that they finally got him out of there.
Wow.
It's like weevils.
Yeah,
It takes several generations.
And they burned the whole building.
Yeah,
the only thing.
Well, you've got to burn them out. That's the only reason comedians get out of there.
Yeah, but we
set the whole place on fire.
There was a black Victorian over by the laundromat, like 4 blocks away, and it was Anton LaVey's house. And it was
amazing.
Just this fat old guy in a like bald with where you can tell when they dye their beard.
Oh, of course.
It's just like, well, one, my beard has more gray in it than yours does, and at the time I was like 28.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, I think he's making the wrong deals with the devil. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't look beautiful, what's happening? You know, like you should be made of vanity and vengeance. All the things you're supposed to avoid.
No, he was lactose intolerant, so he got that taken care of. Instead of the beauty. Yeah.
I would take that. I would take eating cheese over beauty.
The only deal I got is when I put on socks, they feel warm. That's all I got out of it.
Later, I thought of other things.
When you get a pair of socks right out of the dryer?
Yeah.
That's what I have.
And that's what I love, the idea that anyone would ever make a deal with the devil. Ever. Like, have you heard every story ever? Yeah, he's going to trick you. Yeah, he's going to trick you real bad.
This time, though. This time is ironclad.
I tried to write a bit about Pat Robertson's thing about how Haiti made a deal with the devil to repel the French. Like, that's what they did. That's how they became a sovereign country. They made a deal. Like, you can't get a country to agree on literally anything. You can't get them to agree on anything. Listen, I'm just going to pay for free lollipops for all the kids. No. There will be someone who's like, no.
Yeah.
No reason. One time, one lollipop. It won't affect their teeth. Like, I've had them looked at in a lab. They're totally fine. They're made with fruit juice. Like, whatever. But to get everyone to agree, yeah, let's sign away all our souls to be a country. Like, no, Pat, you dummy.
Because who thinks we might not be able to beat the French?
Yep.
All that says is there was not one person in Haiti that knew anyone from Germany.
Mm-hmm, yeah, right.
I think you can do it.
I think, yeah.
But I love what you talked about. Like, I tried to get a bit. Like, how many variations of that did you go through?
I think it's because it ate such a sandwich when I was like, I was at what's that little tiny room in Austin?
The Valve? No, that's
not Esther's Follies, the one next to it.
The Velvet
Room.
Yeah, Velvet
Thank
Room.
you. And it was like during South by, and we was just like potluck, everyone going up, and I threw that in and nothing. And it was also because it was like, no, yeah, and there isn't really a joke much there. It's just kind of like, who the hell would ever, no one would ever sign a deal with the devil. And it's just like, and, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
The devil never walks away from a deal going, I got screwed.
Nah, they got me on that one. Yeah.
It's like undercoating. Yeah. But I love that idea because poor Emma had to sit through me doing this the last time we were together. I had this idea for a bit, and I knew there was a bit in there.
Yeah.
And you know what I found out? There's not.
No.
And you took it for a walk. You really tried.
Oh,
you really tried.
I've tried it. I tried this one bit a couple dozen times, and it's about how I got busted taking pictures of kids in Japan. And what is that? No, and that's the thing. That's you get them. You know, now I got your attention. But I didn't realize that classes on field trips in Tokyo, they put all their kids in the same hats. But the hats are increasingly more ridiculous that tempt you to not take your phone out and take a picture of 9 Japanese 6-year-olds in Viking helmets.
Right.
Viking helmets.
That's a great idea.
And it's escalating. There's like Madeline hats, boys and girls. And it just kind of goes nowhere.
Right.
But the fact that I start with getting busted at taking a picture of kids, it's just like...
Works perfectly.
It hurts to hear that, so it's hard to come back from. So it's like, that's going... I tried it. The alloy will not combine into a Captain America shield.
That's exactly what it is. Something just happened. Oh, okay. I had this observation that 36% of the country, no matter what Donald Trump does, supports him.
Yeah.
And 70...
I think it's, honestly, I think it's less than that.
It's probably less than
that.
And let's say 35, and which leaves 65% of the country looking at these 35% like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Of course.
But you have to forget that that's not a low percentage for crazy shit in this country.
Right. Yeah.
Half the people in the country believe in guardian angels.
Yes.
Half the people believe that a tiny woman in a nightgown follows you around and helps you find your flip-flops.
Well, mine's a kindly old guy in a fedora.
Is it?
So
that's a good guardian angel.
How many of those people...
He does card tricks.
How many of those people that do believe in guardian angels still masturbate? And it became...
Turn away, Petunia.
Well, my bit was... See, I thought of that. My bit was that before they have to masturbate, they all have a ritual where they run around the room jabbing the air with a safety pin in hoping of blinding their guardian angel. And they just wait till they hear like, my eye! And then they can rub one off really quick.
Yeah.
And I I just was. I couldn't let it go.
I think it's
7 shows.
I love it, but for average,
it's psychedelia.
John
it's
Q.
just
public,
psychedelia.
It's too baroque.
You blinded someone to master. Hold on,
it's just too baroque. It's just. I get it. It's just like the joke was 7 miles away. You drove. It was like Townsend trying to explain quadrophenia. No, you don't understand.
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting what you did with Cracked, and then your phone rings one day, and what happened? You got poached from Cracked.
Yeah, essentially. I mean,
I was one of the last. I think I was one of the last guests.
I think you were. I think you might have been. I
ruined everything for everybody.
So I had been there for 10 years, and
God damn it.
Yeah, my job had sort of changed every year. Like at first I was writing everything, then I was editing stuff, and then by the end I was, managing a team of 25 really funny people who were smarter than me. And at a certain point I was like, all right, this job has been what it is for about 3 years. So I was just ready to kind of try something else out. And then the first podcast that I ever listened to was a show called Stuff You Should Know, which is, I think, one of the most popular podcasts. Right. And they were thinking about branching off and like having sort of a comedy imprint. And they reached out to me to start that up on the West Coast. So
now, there was never an attempt to take what you were doing with Cracked and make it a different magazine. Like, I would love a magazine like that. And Spy went away. I really liked, and I guess this is more Stuff You Should Know. I loved Mental Floss.
Yes.
I thought Mental Floss was a great magazine.
Yeah.
And I like a magazine. I like a book. I like that tactile. And there was but then Stuff You Should Know says, we like what you're doing. Do it over here.
Right. And they also brought over the guys who ran Mental Floss. So they're just like
that makes sense.
Pulling in people that they like, and I was lucky enough to be one of them.
Right.
And
did you work on Stuff You Should Know?
No, I didn't. So this was just 6 months ago. The first show that we started up is this daily podcast, the Daily Zeitgeist, which just launched about a month ago. And it's the first thing I've worked on for them.
And it's the Daily Zeitgeist. If any people want to listen to it, are you on a specific network? Or are you on the Stuff You Should Know?
Just search Daily Z and it should fill in the rest.
Is it How Stuff Works? Or is it, what is the...
How Stuff Works is the network.
Right. How Stuff Works is the network. And how many podcasts are on the network?
I think like 14 or 15. It's not that many.
That's a lot, but that's a lot though, considering I know 2 of them.
Right. I guess compared to all the other podcast networks, which, usually have 30, 40 podcasts per network, they have the most downloads other than, I think, NPR and WNYC of any network, but they have like among the fewest podcasts. They only have, they have less than 20, which I think is pretty rare. And
how did you guys connect? Miles Gray.
Well, my girlfriend used to work at Cracked, and that's how I first met Jack.
We all have that story.
Yeah, exactly. And I think at one point Cracked was starting up like a personal experience podcast, and I came in to try and host that. That didn't work out. And
a personal experience podcast.
Yeah.
Let's cut into that.
Jack, I think, could explain that better to me, because when I was in it, they were like,
fine. My personal experience involves the word Jack as well.
Yeah. It's like, talk about like, taking Ibogaine to kick heroin. And that's like all I had to work with. But yeah, it's born out
That's a good story if that's yours.
No, I'm still sort of on the H, but yeah.
Still using heroin?
Yeah. But you can't see my tracks. I shoot it between my toes.
I'm on helium, but I call it the H because it sounds good.
Right.
Yeah, I'm on the
Sounds
H.
Tough.
You sound pretty great for being on the H, that age.
Yeah. God, your voice must actually be so deep.
This is my helium voice. Right. Is a podcast like a magazine that, it has a limited lifespan, and then because there are, like, is Radiolab still big?
I think so.
Yeah. Is Night Vale still big?
I don't think so. Not as much.
Yeah.
Probably not as much.
Yeah.
And I think Radiolab,
which is not a bad thing.
Might have been
it can be
like
a TV show.
Like 5 years ago.
Does podcast, my oldest loves Radiolab. Is there a market for fiction podcasts like Night Vale, which I tried to get into? I really gave it my all and just couldn't gin up the interest.
I think so. I find myself looking for more fictional podcasts, listen to a story versus like someone just like saying facts at me. Especially probably because I work at a daily podcast and now I'm just looking more for like fiction.
What is a good fiction podcast?
Tanis is pretty good.
Tanis?
Have you heard Tanis? It's like a mystery sci-fi mixed with mythology kind of thing about people looking for Tanis, but it's told as if it's like an investigative journalism.
The buried city in ancient Egypt?
Yeah, so it's sort of that's sort of like the jumping off point, and it's done by they have to be Canadian based off the accents. I mean, it's a lot of a boot and like sorry kind of stuff. But yeah,
sorry, this isn't tennis.
Yeah, that one was interesting because I normally I don't like fictional podcasts unless there's like comedy, like just where it's just all about the humor. But yeah, Tanis was like one where I actually found myself kind of like getting into the mystery of it.
And have they done like radio shows?
I think they're presented in like a familiar way, like how Serial was.
Right.
So people are used to like interviews, but then maybe it's recorded phone conversations. So they kind of mix up the presentation.
I love it. I still listen to like old radio shows like Suspense and Inner Sanctum. Like I find those really entertaining. If I'm on a long drive, music will make me drowsy.
Yeah.
But a story will engage me.
Yeah.
The old Dragnets taught me so much about writing because those stories, and I sound like Canadian when I say that, those stories move like every single line is new information that you need. Like they move like freight trains.
Right. Not a wasted line.
Not a wasted line. And I learned a lot about writing from listening to old radio shows, half-hour ones especially, that really move.
I'll have to check those out.
Yeah, they're really the only funny thing about Dragnets, and again making fun of something that was in the 40s. They were sponsored by cigarette companies, and they would have to smoke in every episode, and they would always it would be written into the story. So they'd be like at a shootout in a warehouse. He's got to come out sometime. Come on, come up. The minute he shows his head over that chimney, I'm going to blow it off. Right, Joe? Want to smoke? Sure. Say, these Fatimas have a new smoking quality. Yeah, really. You can get them on the 12-pack for Christmas. Yeah. Not a bad idea for a gift.
Right. I mean, I think the same thing's happening with some people doing on-air ads for podcasts, too. Right. Seamlessly sliding those in, so it's no different.
Right.
So you guys put together what was the mission statement of the Daily Zeitgeist, and how did Anna come into play there?
So Anna was, when I was
producing terrible shows at Meltdown,
producing the Cracked podcast,
sullying her hands with the likes of Arden Marine and myself.
Yeah.
And when I was thinking about leaving Cracked, one of my first thoughts was, well, I'm not going to be able to bring anybody that's full time, but I could probably bring Anna over because I'd worked with her and she's the best.
Yeah,
and
Anna's awesome.
So,
she's right here.
Yeah, it turns out.
Thank you.
Oh, this Anna?
Whoa. Oh, hey. That was sort
Anna's
of
got all the moms talking.
even before we knew that we were going to do a daily podcast. The first idea for the network was start a network, hire Anna. So basically, that's how Anna came to be.
So you guys, you get some funding. You have like offices,
Right.
and a mission of you're going to start this podcast and build a department of how stuff works. That's for comedy.
Yes.
Right.
That is the idea.
Yeah. But what seems good about your business model, which from the little I've been exposed to it, is they don't seem to be insane. Do they have the realistic expectations of what this is going to achieve and what the cost of it is? Because I remember like the .com bubble, it was always like, we're going to think people are going to buy floss through the mail and it's all going to be on the website. How much do you need? $2 billion.
Floss.com.
Yeah, exactly. It seems to be pretty smart and not run by lunatics.
Yeah. Yeah, they're pretty smart and reasonable, and
Right.
they have this experience with.
But are they like, we need a podcast that has 1 million listeners?
No, they have expectations on what you're going to get based on, like, the good thing is that they can expose your new podcast to a bunch of listeners, and if it catches on, then
Right.
that's great, and if not, then you might want to tweak things and then try again.
And how did this daily? Who came up with? Is it you and Adam Carolla? Is that it?
I think so. I couldn't think of, like, I'm a big podcast fan. It's probably my favorite type of media, and I couldn't really think of anyone filling that void, anyone that had a voice that was fun to listen to and that was like kind of bring you up on the day's news.
Right.
And, I guess the Corolla. I stopped listening to the Corolla podcast a couple years ago, but it's
still great.
Ours is a little more to the point about like what the day's events are. I think.
No, Adam's podcast isn't specific to current events.
Right. Yeah.
Specific to current events in Adam's life.
Right.
And I'm not ragging it. It's a really entertaining podcast.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, and I think in this
super
age,
talented.
everyone is you're just seeing news all the time. And it's just like, here, we'll just tell you things that we think is interesting. And also that might give you some usable knowledge later on rather than just sort of like rattling off headlines.
You do need a space to get away from it. This is really, yesterday, and I can say this now because by the time this airs, it will probably also be yesterday as well. There was another shooting. And so I put a thing on my Instagram because now the NRA's switched the script. It used to be if people can't buy a grenade launcher, we're living under Stalin. And now it's not guns, it's mental illness.
Right.
And I think loving guns is a mental illness. So, and as opposed to owning guns, but loving them is a mental illness. But I just posted that quote. Trump said, well, it's not a gun issue, it's a mental illness issue. And then I just posted the headline where in February he made it easier for people with mental illnesses to buy guns.
Right.
And somebody posted, please keep this shit off Instagram and put it on Twitter where it belongs.
I don't. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Like Instagram is a safe space.
Well, that's what it's.
I want inspirational quotes.
It's where he wants to look at pictures. Or inspirational quotes. Right. It's where he wants to look at pictures, and I left it up there. But it does seem like these different platforms do have their specialties.
Yes,
and of course I left it on, and I feel like it should be there. It's my page. I'll do whatever I want. But I get it that's not where Instagram is. Like I don't stay on Twitter because it's just fights.
Right.
It's just fights.
Nonstop.
Going on Twitter used to be a fun place to try out jokes. Now it's like joining an ongoing argument at a party you just showed up at.
Right.
Yeah.
And like I get the point. Like, I know, but I'm going to post this here because this is my pet issue that drives me crazy. But you do need a place where you don't have to hear the news.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. No, Miles is a bad boy. He's a loose cannon. That's why he doesn't care.
Crazy, man. I'm crazy out here. I'm from the valley, man. Crazy out here.
This guy plays by his own set of rules.
Yeah, exactly. I will post political memes. Like, I don't give a fuck.
Just once I'd like to see a show about a cop who plays by a pre-existing set of rules.
And doesn't partner with a renegade. Yeah.
What kind of rules do you play by? The department's. What?
The oldest rules. Oh.
For a while when we were on the road together, I was doing this. I went through a breakup like 4 months ago, and I was doing shut up, and I was trying to do jokes about it until Dana finally was like, "You're too sad for these still. These are going to be really funny in a few months." But like,
you're too sad to open with it.
You're too sad to open with it. And he was like, "You're just like maybe toward the end of your set after they like you and they know you." But I was like really stubbornly determined that I was going to be funny about something that was not funny yet.
You were walking,
I was just like, I can do this.
Stage like a woman walking into the police station.
Sure.
I'm going to do this.
Torn night gown in the black eye. Can I help you?
And I'm like,
or just a sundress, but one arm blanketed in gore. Miss, what have you done? Just like the amount of stabbing you had to take a breath.
Yeah.
And then kept.
Yeah.
The woman finally reached her limit.
Or you shoved your arm into a dog's throat to prevent it from biting you.
Still got bit, but
at least it's just like,
oh god.
And then you were waving the dog around on your arm like a terrible puppet.
I think the only way that works is if you kind of establish, a little rapport. But then, there's one reason I think why stand-up comedy and live performance will never die, we'll always need it, is because there's a connection, because you're really there and people are really there. And that moment where you see a comedian doing a joke they've done 1,000 times and they just break and just say something like, my dog shit on my leg today. I don't know why it messed me up. And you're like, oh, it's a real moment. Real moment. And we're all having it. And I had one of those when the one Bridgetown I had in the last 5 years without my now wife. We had 8 months. We broke up completely. And I was one of those things where, hey, I'm fine. All my friends are like, he's really sad. He's really sad. And there's this show called The Brunch Show that happened at it was like 11 or noon in this bar where people were eating breakfast, but like there's also
everything about
there's
that.
beer and there's coffee, but it's packed. It's a really good show. And it was one of those things like, holy shit, you can have a great show during the day?
Yeah, that's a hard one.
Thank you, Portland, And I went up and just shared this pathetic moment of me washing dishes in my mom's kitchen, whistling, and my mom just playing a Phantom of the Opera song from the movie. And it's called All I Ask of You. And there's this big crescendo where he's like, anywhere you go, let me go too. Like so dramatic. And I started crying into my mom's dishes. And all I did was describe that moment. And it killed, but it was raw pain.
Yeah.
But it was. I think it did well because on the way to go perform walking from my parents' house, I couldn't stop laughing about it because it was so pathetic.
Yeah, Well, that's what happened. Is when we first broke up, I was and I went down to Houston to do a show,
and like talking about you and
my partner.
Yeah.
When not me and Matt. We had broken up, and my partner and I had broken up, and I was down in Houston, and I was right before a show, or I bombed a show terribly before, and then I went to another one, and I warned the booker, I was like, you shouldn't headline me right now. I'm a mess. Wow. I'm a mess. I was like, and he was like, we're here for it. We want to see it. And he paid me before the show. He handed me this wad of cash. I went up with my purse and my jacket still on and cash in my hand. And I had one of those times, like you said, where I was just such a mess and so honest. I just
walked
talked
on stage like Fred McMurray at the beginning of Double Indemnity, like all wounded with the coat on. All right.
You're the last week of Lenny Bruce's life, and he somehow forgot the legal documents. He doesn't even have those.
But then I had a great show, and they were in it for every moment, and it was really funny, and it was like perfect. And then I did that stupid thing where you're like, I can recreate this magic every night, because those jokes worked in that moment. But then for like another 2 months, I was like, I can just be this sad and funny every night. But no.
I
wasn't able to do it.
The only person in my life that I've kind of broken up with as a friend was a guy who I found. I mean, he was just a habitual liar and pulled little scams, and I found out was really, really gross.
What do you do this podcast?
He was really gross to from women friends of mine. And they told me in confidence, and I was like, all right, we can't hang out.
Well, the good thing is women will never get together on that.
Thankfully, there's no forum. All right. All of a sudden, we have giant glasses of gin. And it's the 60s. Just ridiculous. Like, what? They look like water. There's no lime. What do you got?
We're wearing
this room smells like pine and motor oil.
We're wearing a vase-sized thing of gin.
Yeah. We're wearing white golf shoes and Andy Williams sweaters.
Yeah. Just blindingly red noses. I
think Nixon's going to do it. I think he's finally going to do it.
And he and this other guy had this road act that the guy he was kind of like sideman to was pretty popular, pretty big. And I went to see them at House of Blues, and they did musical comedy. But little things would go wrong, and they just snipe at each other. And I was like, oh, this is so funny and immediate. And I saw him again, and the exact same things went wrong, and the exact same snipes, and the exact same improvs. And I was just like, ugh. It just felt so gross. And this is back when we were still friends.
Yeah.
And it was just like, ugh, I don't like a good example of that is there was a guy, and this is incredibly random, but the only history I know is really weird history. There was a violinist who was born without arms in the 1800s, and he was one of those guys who if it's a challenge, I'll take it.
Sure.
And he would ride on horseback to his gigs, one toe around the thing.
Yeah.
And he came on stage and he took his violin out, and as he's playing, a string breaks, and everyone goes, and he's like, he puts a toe to his mouth, like, shh, and then restrings the violin and starts playing again. And from that day forward, he would take a little razor and just cut one just enough. Because he was that showmanship. But it's like,
if his act was he would open up the violin case and then just go, oh, fuck. He forgot he had no arms.
Or
I rode all the way here.
And just a huge pile of drug paraphernalia. Like syringes, just huge Cheech and Chong joints.
Opens it up.
Wrong case.
Or if he just opens it and then picks it up with his mouth and he has no way to play it. I worked in the one time
mannequin arms made to look real. Fall out. Who's the asshole?
The one time I worked in Vegas, the only time in my career I worked in Vegas, I got banned from the Riviera Hotel by Steve Sciarippa, who later went on to be on The Sopranos.
Oh.
He was the guy that was Uncle Junior. He was the
yes, I know you mean.
That guy.
Yeah, that guy.
That guy.
He ran the Riv?
He ran the Improv at the Riviera Hotel.
I played the Riv.
Yeah. He ran
Holy
the
shit.
And
2008.
This was 80. This was 87.
Oh, okay.
87 or 88. And I was miserable. I hated Vegas. I didn't like anything about it. I didn't want to be there. I didn't have any appreciation for Vegas yet.
Sure.
Or irony yet.
Yeah.
I had a very punk mentality. I didn't.
Oh, I look at it. It's just made to it's a greed machine and stuff. I love it now.
Yeah, I can go now for a day. Like I go see Richard Cheese now and appreciate it for what it is.
Yeah.
But I was there and I was on the bill with a juggler, dressed in like a leather biker jacket, but like a pristine leather biker jacket, and like everything about him was built to infuriate me. You know, it was like a Mormon going out as like a Mormon missionary dressed up as Fonzie for Halloween at a children's burn center. Like it was like everything about him was it was the safest version you could possibly have. So, and he would go on stage every night and make the same mistakes every night, laugh at the same mistakes. And then at one point he would ask people for the name of a city, and then his wife would yell out Buffalo, and then he would like had a buffalo riff ready. I don't even remember what the joke was. But
I thought you were going to say like a stuffed buffalo.
Me too. I was like, and then he juggled stuffed buffalo because that's actually kind of amazing.
He did.
Pretty cool.
He did. It was like that. He had a big show, and it drove me insane. And so what I would start to do is every night, just as he was about to, I would try to engage her in conversation.
Oh, you little bastard.
Yeah, like, so do you guys live in LA or do you?
Amazing. Head flitting toward the stage. Oh, that's amazing.
Think you'll have kids one day?
That's amazing.
And then the last show I did, I really didn't want to be there. It was very important chunk of my career. I really want to be there. And the last show, I went on stage with my underwear on the outside of my pants.
Nice.
Just to do or say something, and never commented on it.
Yes.
And Steve Sciarippa, like, you're banned from the ever. But I was like, yeah, that was the point. Yeah, that was the point.
Thank you.
Yeah. He goes,
you played it in my hands.
You disrespected me. You disrespected the improvisation. You disrespected Riviera Hotel. Yes to all. Yes. Yeah, that was the intention.
Amazing.
That was my intention. Was my intention. And then the next week, I went to Dallas, to the Improv in Dallas, and opened for a guy who would later become one of my best friends, a guy named Kevin Rooney. Yeah. And I was so furious, still from the Improv. And he gave me sort of like the advice I gave you. After the first show, he pulled me aside and said, and gave me the best advice of my career. I've said it on this podcast before. He said, Dana, they want to like you.
Yeah.
But they are waiting to see if you like them. And if they don't think you like them, they're not going to like you.
That's all it is.
And then the other advice,
Genius.
and then I said, yeah, no, you're right. And I had this horrible experience at the Improv in Vegas. And he goes, it is a show. You're on stage and you're in the light and they're in the dark and your voice is amplified and they're not supposed to talk at all.
Yeah.
There's a reason. It's a show.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I've said that a lot. I've repeated that a lot. I always cite my source, which is Kevin Rooney. But I was a twice as good a comedian the next show. Like the 11 o'clock show, I was twice as good as the 9 o'clock. Because I just like all the hatred just kind of like went, it's just not about them.
No, this exactly.
is about me.
They're not.
This is my problem with me. And what is the mission statement of the Daily Zeitgeist?
So we're trying to take a sample of all the ideas that are out there sort of changing the world, or like get a snapshot of any given moment, not just the news and, what the president's Twitter is saying right now, but also pop culture. We look at grocery store tabloids because we feel like those millions of people pass by those every day.
And it is many of their source of news.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly. Just by reading that, like, oh, okay.
Well, people
Right.
do think if they read something or hear something, that it's the truth.
Right. And so we're trying to look at what the general consensus is out in the world and then start from there and speak to that and try and correct that as much as possible.
It's really what the Daily Show was originally.
Yeah. That's the goal.
Before Jon Stewart, but before Jon Stewart came, the original Daily Show had a much broader mandate.
Right.
I don't think it worked the way Liz and wanted it to work. I don't think she was completely. I'm speaking for her, but I know her well. But that was the original goal, I think, of the Daily Show. It was sort of like a much broader canvas of like, this is the news and this is, this is the news and this is culture and this is, this is sort of where
Was
we're
this
at.
with Kilborn?
Yeah. I think that was the issue. Is there any studies of how the National Enquirer is basically the United States version of Pravda now?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a little bit about how the guy who publishes all those tabloids is a huge Trump supporter and
that's unbelievable.
And decades-long friend.
Right.
Yeah.
So will refuse any stories about Trump that paint him in a negative light. But
I also think he bought some very negative stuff and just sat on it.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, even like with the Harvey Weinstein thing, like he had someone at American Media Inc. who owns all those tabloids helping him out or advocating for him to cover shit up. So yeah, it makes sense that when you get swept in the AMI web, that's a way to control what gossip is gonna say
and the
about
message,
Their chief content officer is one of Harvey Weinstein's spies in this New Yorker article that just came out.
Right. That came out. Is that with all the black cube?
Yes.
I find it interesting that Ronan Farrow is the dogged reporter on this case because it is so clearly an example in the way that James Ellroy could not directly confront his mother's murder at a younger time in his life. And he transferred it onto the Black Dahlia and wrote the book and became a famous sort of like Black Dahlia touchstone celebrity. Ronan Farrow does not seem to be able to confront or expound upon what he thinks and claims, is probably correct, happened to his younger sister at the hands of his father.
Right.
So he's all over Harvey Weinstein
Yeah.
for basically the same thing.
But it's working out. It's working out for the women.
It's working out for it's an amazing tipping point, and that's really what it is. I mean, there's so much.
It's a comic book-esque origin story. He witnesses this thing as a child and then grows up to really be this transformative force in culture.
And he really does look a lot more like Frank Sinatra than Woody Allen, but that's a different story for another time.
whole other conspiracy.
Yep.
Old blue jeans, they call it. So Anna, and now your podcast, tell us a little bit about, because people should definitely listen to the Daily Zeitgeist.
Yes.
And check out, what is the flagship of How Stuff Works? It's
Stuff You Should Know.
Stuff You Should Know. Stuff You Should Know is basically, it sounds to me like it's like Radiolab.
It is. It's Radiolab-esque. It always has the same two hosts, but they're really funny guys, and it's very conversational, and they take a single subject each episode. There are 3 episodes a week, and sort of expound on it and tell you all the interesting things under the sun about that given subject.
Wow. What would one subject be?
For their 1000th episode, they did a Simpsons episode because they're one
OJ and Nicole. And
right, exactly. And just, how OJ was innocent. And,
Thank you.
But,
her head just did that.
Like many funny people I know, their number one touchstone is remembering The Simpsons when. And so they just did a whole episode talking about the history and, how it came together and some brilliant writers that might have worked for them once or twice before.
Talking about me.
Yeah.
I know who you mean.
Yeah. Parasites is one of my favorite episodes of theirs where they just talk about how parasites work and all the different types of parasites. And
no, I get into that. Like, I find that stuff fascinating. And what I call the middle piece of this podcast is that usually it tends to be about people.
Right.
But I love Roger Corman. Well, how did Roger Corman happen?
Right.
How did that happen? Hugh Hefner is the one I really want to tackle.
Oh, super.
Because it starts off really cool and becomes really Baroque.
Yeah.
I try to imagine him dead and I try to imagine him having sex for the last time, and it's the same face.
I used to work for Playboy, and one of the last.
You spill that a half hour in.
Well,
it was almost like a record scratch on a trailer. I used to work for Playboy. I feel good.
Yeah, I used to.
It was the 90s.
Yeah, and I'd gone to the mansion a number of times, and one of the times, like he'll come out at the parties.
Hello, Miles.
It was just the most depressing thing because at that point they were just wheeling out a somewhat animate object that like waved a hand, and then they would like there were like carnival rides at the parties, so like they put him in a Ferris wheel, but like so delicately, and it kind of went from one of those things where people were like, "Yeah, fucking half man," to like, "Oh fuck,"
and you just hear way up at the top, I have carrots upstairs.
Oh, gosh. So I mean, it was like that, and by the end of it, everyone's kind of bummed out, and then you're like, I guess back to.
How do you think the girls who have to fuck them feel?
I can't even imagine.
Well, Holly Madison came out and said that she was not upset that he was dead because of her time at the mansion.
Dolly Madison, who makes those delicious cakes and pies?
I don't even know.
Was she the one that published? There's a book. April Richardson told me about this.
Yes.
Was she the one that did the unauthorized book? There's one that's self-published that really dishes the shit. And
I don't know if it's that one.
That's the one I want to get.
But she published a book, Holly, who was, I guess, one of the main girls on Girls Next Door on that show, and she did not have a great time in that mansion with him.
Was it with him or was it with the people that were in charge of him? And he was basically
him specifically. Apparently, he was very just abusive mentally
and very controlling too.
Yeah,
it was like, you're not going to be around other men. Kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you had to have sex with him, which was
grim.
She talks about all these things, like the girls would take turns pleasuring him, and it's just like, all right, who's next? And just imagine him laying there, like all just
Viagra'd up, and I've read those stories. It's truly horrifying.
They're like,
it's truly horrifying. But here's an idea: don't be his girlfriend. Here's an idea.
Yeah, they're like, I figured out the trick. Go to med school. Yeah. Put a towel over his face and use the grapefruit.
Oh, God.
Yeah. He did some really cool shit in the 50s, but it all went south in a big, big way.
Yeah, and the place, like, by the time I was working there, like, the culture in there, like, it was just gross.
I went to the mansion one time. It's I have a feeling the mansion's a lot like Hugh himself, much smaller than you think. It's not a huge. It's a nice sized house.
Yeah, the property itself is pretty big. Like,
right, but it's not a mansion. It's like a mansion shaped house.
Yeah, it's not like a stately manor in any way.
It's not Downton Abbey.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
The whole thing smells like chlorine.
Yeah. It just seems really like you can't do enough laundry there.
I describe like when I was a kid, you'd go to like your friend's grandparents' house, who who were wealthy, like in the 70s.
Yeah, it looked,
you can tell like, oh, this at one time was probably a very cool looking place, and now you're like, this is kind of weird. Like an old airport.
A friend of mine from high school went to Castro's, whatever the White House was for Castro in Cuba, and like this is like
Casablanca
in the early, exactly, that's what it would be called in the early aughts. And he said it was the same thing. It was like this big house that had a huge state of the art makeover in 1972.
Right.
And since then, no one's gone near it.
Yeah. Like no one knew how to work the lights because they were like some new weird bizarro thing from the 70s. Like,
exactly.
It's a relic.
Well, you just have to put on an ELO album and the lights will turn on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another guy who like bought
this lights was designed by Elvin Bishop.
I don't know that.
Didn't they say he died with like a lot of E. coli going on?
Oh yeah, it was something like that.
Yeah. Have you ever been to like a really old person's house and like their dishes aren't washed and like everything's just a little like dingy because they've sort of
lost
that's how I picture
it
at the end.
Well, there was plenty of staff there, including like this like most.
There's plenty of staff. FF. And PH.
Exactly. Staff all over the place.
Yeah, there was staff. There was a staff influx and a staff infection. You spend 1/3 of your life sleeping, so you should be comfortable. The original Casper mattress combines multiple supportive memory foams for a quality sleep surface with the right amount of sink and bounce. Casper products are cleverly designed to mimic human curves, providing supportive comfort for all kinds of bodies. Its breathable design helps you sleep cool and regulate your body temperature throughout the night. They're all designed, developed, and assembled in the United States and delivered right to your door in a small, how-do-they-do-that sized box. You can be sure of your purchase with Casper's 100-night risk-free sleep-on-it trial. Get $50 towards select mattresses by visiting Casper.com/Dana and using the promo code Dana at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Oh, yeah.
Popcorn, rich with hot melted butter. Steaming hot coffee. Your favorite cigarettes. It's intermission. Rise and stretch time.
Welcome to Political Talk with two guys from Boston. A working man's look at the socio-political issues of our day. And now, Political Talk with two guys from Boston.
This is Political Talk with two guys from Boston. I'm Johnny Condon.
Robbie Sullivan here.
Brought to you by Bevel Aqua Heating and Air Conditioning.
We're cool if you're cool.
Let me ask you a question. I've been trying to Postmates a Frappuccino to my aunt.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's her birthday.
That's nice.
I cannot figure out Postmates.
Well, you can't, or the kid who's supposed to bring the Frappuccino.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to order a Frappuccino from a Starbucks not near my house.
Does your phone support this kind of activity?
To be sent to someone who's not in my house. And the future does not allow the concept of generosity to others.
Well, I like that you were able to understand that you could do this, and then they're like, well, not really.
You can't.
You can't do that.
If I wanted it for me, I want something near me brought to me. That's the other thing. If I need it brought to me, it wouldn't be near me. If it's near me, I can get it.
I'll go get that.
Yeah, no.
If it's Dunkin', it's around the corner. I'll walk.
If it's near you, we can bring it to you. If it's far away, I don't understand why you'd want us to bring. It's the super lazy.
Is it the amount of money that you're sending? Is that bigger?
I don't know what this word means, but I'm going to say it, and we can move on. It's the algorithm. That's all I know.
I thought that was my niece's name for a little bit, and I realized they just kept talking about why they changed their name, and I'm like, okay, algorithm.
It's and you can have it. You can have everything brought to you now.
Yeah.
You don't really. You know what we're turning into?
How much would that Frappuccino cost to get sent to your house?
I think it's like $14, $20. I don't know.
How much is the drink itself?
How much I would pay at Starbucks, or how much is it worth? At Starbucks, it probably costs you $6, $7.
But now it's
in
14.
reality, how much is it worth? Pennies a serving.
But
pennies a serving.
Your aunt on that day, you're like, $14 to me is nothing. I want her to have a smile.
Here's the fucking thing.
Yeah.
Everything costs what ramen costs.
That's right.
But it's all how deeply you're getting.
Amazon send you your ramen through Whole Foods. Now you're getting the best ramen that you
even
can possibly get price-wise.
Cars cost their weight in ramen. It really. It's just how deep are you getting tooled?
I don't know that I want to drive a ramen mobile, but I think we all do already.
We all drive a ramen car. It's what they do. It's how they survive in India. They drive to the restaurant. When they run out of gas, they eat the car.
I get a call saying if I put what the hell they call it? If I put a wraparound on my car.
Oh yeah.
Product,
wrap your car like a gift.
They'll give me $350 a week for it, and I'm like, wow, that doesn't sound like a bad plan. What's the product? Kiva Organics. I don't know what that is.
I don't even know what that is.
I don't know what it is, but organics on my car, that doesn't sound like a bad thing. So I'm like, yeah, well, tell me more about it. So they send me an email. It's a pot company. It's not even in Massachusetts yet. They want to break in, to Massachusetts. So they want us driving around our cars with that says, like, basically, I'm an idiot.
Please arrest. Also, it's just, why don't you get
pull
a
me
neon?
over,
Yeah, pull me over.
This car. You're in real good shape, officer.
Yeah.
Like, why doesn't it say that right on it?
I was talking to somebody who's waiting for a delivery of weed. Like they did it on their phone, and it wasn't to their dealer. It's still a store that sells weed, and they were going to run it over.
Yeah, they're going to bring it to them.
Yeah, that's because apparently they had to do this because potheads have so much get up and go.
Well, growing up, the same thing.
There's one thing you never see
the
is
guy's name.
A stoner with a
we
lengthy
knew his brother. We knew his sister. I mean, Donnie would come through the neighborhood.
Sure.
And be like, who wants something? I'm coming through your neighborhood.
Right.
And we'd all want something. I mean, when I was a kid, I loved it.
You show me a stoner's to-do list, and I'll show you a lack of checks.
I would like to study
scratch balls. I'll get around to it.
But I'd like to study the people that only loved it when it was nefarious.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as that nefarious part of the
Sure.
went away, they moved up to something else that was also nefarious, because that's what they really wanted in their lives, was something causing friction.
Illicit. Yes, the
illicit.
lure of
think that.
Of course.
Even with the liquor, some people go up to the heart of liquor because the other one's just not working no more. Why? Because they do it every day.
It's the same thing. I have all the Twilight Zones on DVD.
Good, great show.
But if I'm flipping the channels and there's one on, I'll watch it. Whereas I would not put on the DVD.
Right, I wouldn't go find that episode. And
I want to see.
Like time has prevented. I mean, has created this in my life.
You come home from work, you just want to have a chicken pot pie and watch Cliff Robertson become a ventriloquist dummy.
I want to watch. Truly, this is the one I always want to see. I always want to see Ed Wynn in anything.
I hear you. Of course.
Anything, but in that Twilight Zone. The one where he's like the man.
One for the Angels?
Yeah.
Where he helps the mayor from Jaws get his wish granted?
Yes. I love that one so much.
That's what I love about watching old TV. It's like when you watch Perry Mason, I don't know who the killer is. Is it the mayor from Jaws or the cop from the Munsters?
You once the one who said to me, like, hold on, I'm watching Perry Mason and he's running after someone in his wheelchair.
Oh, that was Ironsides.
Oh, Ironsides.
That was Ironsides.
You're right.
Because he didn't want to.
You weren't kidding either. You were like, hold on, it's an action scene in Ironsides, and it should go quickly.
If this guy can get to the Lincoln Memorial, he's home free.
More like, can he get to the door in the edge of the room, or can he cut him off? We'll be right back.
I don't want to. I'll do a TV show as long as I don't have to walk or stand. Hang on, we have an idea.
Well, we're an action show, but only if it can happen in 4 feet.
In the early 70s, there was Ironside, who was a cop who couldn't run. And then there was, remember Longstreet?
Oh, yeah.
Who was the blind cop.
Totally. I believe that
every chase scene is like, where
they were trying to make
make
McLeod if he was blind. You remember McLeod?
That's the best pitch in show business. You walk in, you look at everybody, and you go, you rap on the table, you go, blind McLeod, and then you get up and you walk out and you wait for your phone to ring.
I loved McLeod because he was just, everyone else was coming up with all the reasons that could be. He goes, well, might be the girl. And you'd be like, oh my gosh, we'll find out after this.
It was just one day, you don't understand stuff. You got to get far away from it.
Yeah, to really
you got to get far away from it.
Does it have resonance in my life still, or was I just flabbergasted by Velma?
I still, exactly. And I still don't believe that we have really come to grips as a culture with what happened to pants in the 70s.
You mean from bell bottoms?
Just the whole idea of like,
how that happened.
How can we somehow evoke a sailboat and pants?
I can see, as you said that, I can see the hemline of my mother was a beautiful woman in the 70s, wore a lot of bottoms and everything. I can see that hem and how it's like 3.5 feet.
Yeah, the hem
wide.
starts at the knee. She's got frosting tips. She went out and got frosting tips.
Well, my mother eventually
wearing a pair of legs.
Time in Texas,
legs, pantyhose.
Bedazzler.
Oh, sure.
When that was something my mother would have never done in a million years. But when you get to somewhere where everyone has them in their sweaters, it's like a collector's thing.
And that goes to the most perplexing aspect of all humanity that is not covered enough in a higher education system. Yeah. Certainly not in the private universities where it should be covered.
Yeah, well,
and that was the period when Roy Orbison was a hippie. There's a lot of
weeks or days.
It's a couple of years, and we're mostly in your higher universities. Yeah. There's a large focus on law, medicine, and financial services, and a gaping chasm, which should be the sociological import of Roy Orbison during his hippie phase.
Didn't we take our sisters to go see that? We did. We went and saw the Traveling Wilburys. Remember?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. We didn't.
I believe
It's got to be 1995,
Yeah.
6 or something.
They should just keep updating the Wilburys because
Put a new one in.
Are they all, Bob Dylan is the only. Is he the only living Wilbury?
Imagine that when they started it, they were doing it because in case he dies soon.
Yeah, and he outlived all of them. No, Jeff Lynne is alive.
Oh yeah, Jeff Lynne.
Jeff Lynne is alive.
They'll never let him.
Just
die.
had a birthday.
Yeah,
but
he's synthesized now, so he doesn't even have to worry.
But I wonder, like Jeff Lynne, Bob Dylan, Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, Roger Daltrey, Pete Townsend, the only members of the band left. Do they all? Is Paul's first thought every morning? Is Ringo dead? the drive to win that
I don't know.
pronounced?
I know that.
You know, Brian Wilson would drown Mike Love in a toilet if he could. No.
If he's the last Beatle and they start asking him questions and everything becomes like a rope-a-dope-a-doo, like, uh-oh. Get a cartoon.
That's true.
Ringo.
That's true. He becomes Ringo becomes Dana Carvey's impression of Paul McCartney.
At this point, they're like two old aunts.
Ring-a-ding-a-doo-doo.
You love.
Sure, they're lovely.
But you don't want to hear him say anything untoward about others.
But here's my
Beatles.
My beard is so white. My beard looks like Denver Pyle's beard. How does Ringo have no gray in his beard? He's in his
I think it's called
mid-70s.
Just for Beatles.
Just for Beatles.
It's just a special.
How old is he now? He's got to be in his mid-70s. Yeah, he's got to be in his mid-70s.
Because if you can imagine it, Day was 20.
And there was still rocking.
He was born
I
in
don't know.
1940.
Yeah, 40, yeah, late 40s.
George Harrison was the same age as my father. He was born in
Really?
42. Yeah, born the same exact month.
Wow.
Yeah, and then they actually passed in the same year too.
Oh, I thought you meant he passed him like he was younger and then he became older.
No, I always thought that George Harrison was like the mellow Beatle who was not. He didn't really care about the attention.
I think that there's a certain thing that because he didn't give a shit, or seemed to not give a shit, that people like him more. That's why of all the Saturday Night Live people,
you never heard him screaming about the lawsuit about that song. He just went like, "Oh yeah, it does sound like that."
Oh yeah,
it does. Like he wasn't even like
caught me in a fib.
Right,
caught me in a fib.
He's like, yeah, well, I suppose we all borrow ideas from one another, but it was never like, how could they do this?
Yeah, he was like,
I'm just a guy.
I would think at that level of money, and I think this goes for everybody. This is what we really need. Going into the new year, this is what we need.
Yeah.
People really need to get this in their life. Yeah. Did you hear what? Did you hear what he said? Scrabbity.
You're right. It's like the comma that allows us to say it's not going to get me.
Yeah. Aliens are landing.
I think that's
God love them.
I also think every state should decide on who their Beatles were. Like, okay, the Beatles were from London.
That would
but
be
in
great.
Boston, would it be Jay Giles' band?
Or,
would it be Boston?
Or
Who
every state has a Beatle, like they have a flag and a bird.
Oh, that's
like,
even better.
Welcome to Massachusetts.
Oh, that's better.
George is our Beatle.
A state bird, a state bug.
Yeah, and you have a state beetle.
Bug, a beetle.
Yeah,
that's
and Alaska,
really great.
And Alaska would have to have Pete Best.
Yeah, they can't have one of the real ones. They have
not
to
a part. Yeah,
alternate.
Adjacent because they're not a part of the
Our
country.
Beatle adjacent Pete Best.
Yeah,
someone else could pick George Martin if you were like Rhode Island.
Yeah, and Florida would have like somebody they screwed because it is our sluttiest state.
Yeah.
If states were people, Florida would be a woman in an ill-advised halter top.
It's a woman in an ill-advised halter top at an old retirement home.
A woman built like a couch in a halter top.
Yeah, when someone says they're moving to Florida, you go, "Oh my gosh, you're 70." Like who of our friends when we were younger ever said I'm moving to Florida?
What is the state? What is Florida's fucking motto?
Taxes.
Florida's motto is "In God We Trust." It's not even original. They stole it from the money.
$1 bill?
Yeah, "In God We Trust."
What, was there a deadline and they didn't make it?
Yeah, that was from the same company that came up with "Soup is good food" for Campbell Soup.
We're right there on the edge of it.
Massa should be "Don't shit yourself." Massachusetts,
you know what?
Don't shit yourself.
God, we trust that all the old people will bring their money here at the end. It should be the replacement.
In God we trust. Also, not a good motto, not a good plan.
Yeah.
In God we trust.
My sister says...
I think it's somebody looking at the burning house.
You move to Florida, none of us will ever come there.
The only good reason to move to Florida.
Yeah, that no one will ever come there. She left immediately.
We ain't going down there yet.
We're not coming there. Oh, perfect.
Exactly.
I'll send you oranges.
Yeah, I'm moving to a bread truck.
Yeah. Did you ever get a bag of oranges in the mail when you were growing up?
I got hit with a bag of oranges once.
Did you really?
I owed somebody money. I lost a lot of money at the Trotters. And I thought, what if I just don't pay? And I found out they'll hit you with a bag of oranges.
Oh, that's funny.
You're bruised on the inside where it counts.
Political Talk with two guys from Boston.
Wouldn't this pizza taste delicious right now? Or how about some piping hot spaghetti or lasagna? Try Giovanni's Pizza for all three. They'll taste even better than they look. Bring the family to dinner at Giovanni's Pizza, 2nd and Mulberry Streets.
Hollywood and the San Fernando Valley. So close. So similar. Yet so different. The hot chick you're afraid to talk to, and her tomboy sister who's actually fun to be around. The Dream Factory and the Valley, where movie stars go to frolic and where the Brady Bunch lived. Separated physically by the Santa Monica Mountains, Hollywood and the Valley are connected by two major thoroughfares, Coldwater Canyon and, more famously, and just a stone's throw from good old Falcons Lair Recording Studios, Laurel Canyon. Laurel Canyon was originally inhabited by the Tongva people, who are famous for giving us the expression, "Hey, lady!" No, I'm kidding. I don't know anything about them. But a spring-fed stream provided year-round water to the Santa Monica Mountains, and water, more precious to Los Angeles than oil, you can see a little movie called Chinatown to see that played out, attracted ranchers. By Tongva people. After the Mexican-American War and California's induction as a state, the area was settled by farmers taking advantage of the water rights. In the early 1900s, a trolley track was built that went from Sunset Boulevard halfway up the mountain to what is now known as Lookout Mountain Road. The trolley was actually a 1912 Oldsmobile that sat 10 people, and it went halfway up the hill to where the trail splits. Now, if you go to the right, you go up over the hill into the valley. If you go to the left, you go to the peak of the mountain to what was the Lookout Mountain Inn, which was known at the time as a pleasure resort. The Lookout Mountain Inn was a beautiful, exclusive hotel that burned to the ground in 1918. It was never rebuilt, but it did put the area on the map as a prime real estate location by ranchers, and that is evidenced by the house I am sitting in as we speak. In 1915, the intersection of Laurel Canyon and Lookout Mountain was the home of the Lookout Tavern. It was described as a log cabin mansion. Cowboy star Tom Mix lived there for a while. Directly across the street is the home, which you cannot see now. It's just a wall of greenery. But it was supposedly lived in by Houdini at a certain point. But then I guess he disappeared. In 1968, the Lookout Tavern was rented by Frank Zappa and turned into a recording studio and celebrity hangout. And it is this era, the counterculture heyday of the late 1960s and the early 1970s, for which Laurel Canyon is mostly known for. You see, it's located just minutes from the Sunset Strip, which was ground zero for the music scene at that time. And yet Laurel Canyon allowed you to live as if you were out in the country. It's quiet, it's woodsy, the trees are full of owls, the streets are full of coyotes, which is not good if you own a cat. Take it from me. But you're just a 10-minute car ride from where all the action is. In its heyday, Laurel Canyon was the home to Frank Zappa, Jim Morrison, Carole King. The Byrds lived here, Buffalo Springfield, Canned Heat, John Mayall, the Eagles, who apparently everybody hated, the band Love, Neil Young, the Monkees, the Crosby, Stills, and Nash song Our House. You know that one, Our House. It's a very, very, very fine. That was written by Graham Nash about the house he shared in Laurel Canyon with Joni Mitchell. The Doors song Love Street, which I believe is on the Strange Days album, includes the line, "There's the store where the creatures meet." That's a reference to the Laurel Canyon Country Store that is still going strong. I get coffee there just about every morning. There's an apartment in the basement of the Laurel Canyon Country Store that used to belong to Mama Cass Elliott, and if you ask, hey, can I see the apartment? If they're not busy, they'll show it to you. The Father John Misty song, I Went to the Store One Day, is about meeting his wife in the parking lot of the Laurel Canyon Country Store. The Laurel Canyon Country Store is still going strong, but the Lookout Tavern burned down on Halloween in 1981. 1981 was a bad year for the Canyon, as it was also the year that one of the most notorious crimes in its history, in LA history, took place. The Four on the Floor, or as they were better known, the Wonderland Murders. July 1st, 1981. It was hot in Los Angeles. I was assigned to the day watch. The boss is Captain Didion. Sorry, thought I was Jack Webb. Eddie Nash was a Los Angeles nightclub owner and a purported organized crime figure. And in the morning of June 29th, 1981, his home was the target of a brutal home invasion in which his bodyguard, Gregory DeWitt Dials, was shot and injured. The robbery, as it turned out, it would later be learned, was committed by Ron Launius, Billy DeVerrell, David Lind, and Tracy McCourt. Eddie Nash suspected that John Holmes, the porn star, also known as Johnny Wad, was involved. Now, John Holmes was the real-life inspiration for Dirk Diggler in Boogie Nights, although Dirk Diggler was a choir boy compared to John Holmes. Holmes was famous for how unfeasibly large his penis was. Tell me about it. And is credited in over 500 adult films. And you know when you watch him, you feel so very adult. Holmes had been to Nash's house earlier that day on a pharmaceutically related errand. Eddie Nash suspected that John Holmes went to the house specifically to leave the sliding door open so that later he and his accomplices could enter the dwelling and commit the robbery. Despite being injured, Nash sent Dials down into Hollywood to find Holmes, and apparently that was not too difficult. When he was found, unfortunately for John Holmes, he was wearing one of Eddie Nash's rings. Swift. Back at the Nash house, Scott Thorson, who was Liberace's ex-boyfriend, was there on another pharmaceutically related errand, and he witnessed John Holmes being tied to a chair and repeatedly beaten until he divulged the names of his accomplices. 2 days later, July 1st, 1981, 3 a.m., a number of unidentified men enter the townhouse at 8763 Wonderland Avenue and bludgeon to death Launius DeVerrell along with Joy Miller and Barbara Richardson. The weapons appeared to be hammers and metal pipes. All were killed in a crime scene the LAPD claimed was more brutal and savage than the Tate LaBianca murders. DeVerrell's wife Susan was gravely injured in the attack, but did not die, although she suffered massive head trauma and has absolutely no memory of the attack. Neither David Lind nor Tracy McCourt were present at the time. Although neighbors would later report screams around that time, no phone calls were placed to the police until 4 p.m. July 1st, 12 hours later, when furniture movers working next door heard Susan DeVerrell moaning and went to investigate. Look, the house was notorious for round-the-clock, crazy drug parties, and when the neighbors heard the screams around 4 a.m., they just assumed it was another social gathering. LAPD detectives Tom Lang and Robert Souza led the investigation. Searching Eddie Nash's home several days later, they found more than $1 million worth of cocaine, as well as some items that were stolen from the Wonderland house. detectives pulled a palm print off the murder scene, off Ron Launius's headboard. It belonged to John Holmes, who was soon arrested and charged with 4 counts of murder. The LAPD DA tried to pin the whole thing on Holmes, saying that he was angry that he got cut out of his share of the initial robbery. But Holmes' defense attorneys, court-appointed public defenders, successfully argued that Holmes was just another victim, forced to participate in the murders by a furious Eddie Nash. Holmes was acquitted, but spent 110 days in jail on contempt charges for refusing to testify or cooperate with authorities. It is safe to assume he had his reasons. John Holmes died in 1988 of complications from AIDS. He never divulged what he knew about the murders, aside from admitting to his ex-wife, Sharon Gabanini, that he had been to the Wonderland house earlier on the day of the killing. She also later testified that he showed up at her house the morning after the murder in blood-spattered clothes. In 1990, Eddie Nash was finally charged with having planned the murders, and Gregory DeWitt Dials was charged with participating in them. Scott Thorson testified at the trial, which ended in a hung jury on a vote of 11-1. A second trial in 1991 ended in the acquittal for both. The crime remains technically unsolved. In the latter half of the 20th century, Laurel Canyon was the home, for a while, of a top-secret military base. In 1941, a 10,000-square-foot air defense center was built high up on Lookout to coordinate Los Angeles' radar installations. Remember, during World War II, we were very worried about the Japanese. In 1947, a fully functioning motion picture studio was built there, where military training films were produced, as well as top-secret military photos and video footage was developed, like that of the Trinity nuclear tests. It was known to the Hollywood stars who worked there, people like Bob Hope and Jimmy Stewart, James Garner, as The Hill. Now, these people were hired to narrate training films, and they'd say things like, well, I've got some work this week up on the Hill. For years, from the early 1940s to the mid-1970s, one of the busiest, most important movie studios in Hollywood was top secret. Where is it now? It was decommissioned and converted into a large private residence, and according to records in 2015, was sold to Jared Leto. Great story if it ends there, right? Well, it doesn't have to. Go to the library page at danagould.com and find links to purchase many of the books and films mentioned in this month's show. Like Laurel Canyon, the inside story of rock and roll's legendary neighborhood by Michael Walker, or Canyon of Dreams, which I think is a better book, by Harvey Kubernik. Or Matt Braunger's hilarious albums Shovel Fighter and the equally great Big Dumb Animal. He has much better titles than I do. Emma Arnold's Shut Up, Calvin, and my own album, Mr. Funny Man. Or the fictionalized account of Johnny Wad Holmes' Boogie Nights. Or the less seen but very good Wonderland, starring Val Kilmer. Or the documentary Legends of the Canyon with music by Crosby, Stills and Nash, Love, The Byrds, The Doors, Joni Mitchell. Also on the homepage of danagould.com, you'll see options to donate to the show or subscribe through PayPal. Every cent goes back into the show, and please know we appreciate what, if anything, you can do. But that's not all. You can visit our store at comedyfilmnerds.com for Bevel Aqua heating and air conditioning t-shirts, Dana Gould Hour t-shirts, signed vinyl copies of Funhouse, Let Me Put My Thoughts in You, and I Know It's Wrong. It's all here. It's all online. And it's all for you, baby. It's all for you.
Folks, it's really delicious, and we know you'll enjoy it, too. At our refreshment stand, you'll find these pizza pies, freshly baked to your order. Make sure you get yours and enjoy it now.
Here is an LA crime story that strains credulity, as they say, but it is all true. Did you know the bizarre connection between the Beach Boys and Charles Manson? In 1968, Beach Boys drummer Dennis Wilson was driving through Malibu when he noticed two female hitchhikers. He picked them up and, being Beach Boys drummer Dennis Wilson, brought them home. Later, they introduced him to their friend, a very charismatic, 5-foot, 4-inch hippie dude named Charles, as in Manson. Now, this is 1968, and Charles Manson hadn't done anything yet, so he was just, a short hippie dude named Charles Manson. And he had a lot of chicks with him, so he and his so-called family, things starting to sound familiar now, pretty much moved in with Dennis Wilson. And for a while, everything was great. Charlie fancied himself an amateur songwriter. Dennis liked enough of his work to bring it to the Beach Boys. They famously recorded one of his tracks. And there was even talk of getting Charlie a recording contract with the band's record label, Brother Records. But by that time, Charlie had started getting, turbo weird. At one point, Charlie was told that he and the family had to move out of Dennis's house as they had basically overrun the place. Charlie didn't appreciate it, so he stopped by one day and gave Dennis's housekeeper a gift to pass on to Dennis. A bullet. That queered the deal. So now, 3 things happen. The job of telling Charlie he's not going to get a record contract with Brother Records falls to Beach Boys pal and record producer Terry Melcher. Charlie and his family move out of L.A. and relocate to the Simi Valley, where they stay at the Span Ranch, which in its heyday was a movie location used for westerns. And Terry Melcher and his then-girlfriend, actress Candice Bergen, move out of their house. That house is then rented out to another couple, movie director Roman Polanski and his wife, Sharon Tate.
And now, on with the show.
Kyle Kinane had a bit about how every time he's in the road he feels like he's a team playing an away game, which I was like, yeah, but no. And I would talk to him about it, and and it's like, because he sells out places, and and they all, he has it in his act. They all look like him. They're all guys in their late 30s, early 40s, beards, drinking too much, all of them, but I think you feel that way when you're starting out, and it's not necessarily true. It is true in some places. Some rooms are, hell pits. You got to kind of fight your way out of. Yeah. But you when you're younger, you think it's all like that, and it isn't.
No. And the other thing that made it a little is I have a friend, Mike Murphy. He's been on the podcast before, and a large part of his career is speaking engagements. A lot of those people that they become professional speakers, sure, and they go on the road, and they have hell gigs too. Yeah, and it's like it's not just you. No, everybody's on the road, and everybody has a hell gig.
It will just happen. When it doesn't happen for a long time, I get nervous. I'm like, oh boy,
But it's also
you can feel it coming.
It's not just because you chose
building up.
It's not just because you chose to be a comedian. Yeah, it could be a presentation. And it could be whatever.
Now I feel like it's comedy is a little more focused, where people know how to put like acts together. But you started it out in the era where it was just like this guy dresses like a monkey.
Oh yeah, no,
talks philosophy, and this guy juggles, and this guy tells jokes. And you're like, what am I doing here? I remember there was a variety show I did. Maybe I was here for I'd been in LA for 2 years, nothing. And me and the then unknown Andy Samberg were backstage. And, it was when he had longer hair, and him and Yorma were making these amazing videos. And I knew they were this close to getting on Saturday Night Live. And I was like, oh yeah, that'd be a genius choice. They'll take the Adam Sandler void of silliness, and take it to the new level, which they did with their videos. But I'm backstage with him, and we're just getting to know each other, and where are you from and stuff. And he's a good guy. And, this was in the era where it's just hey, there's no beer backstage? Well, let's go get beer. And so we went to this, corner store, each got a 40 of Bud or something, and came back. And it was me, Andy, people on the show, and a guy who played the saw. And he had a leather trench coat, black leather trench coat, one of the ones, pristine, like the clean biker jacket of your guy. And he had a fog machine.
Yes, he did.
And lasers. And
lasers.
And he would play this really serious music. And we're trying, I think he had a choker on. And we're trying, bald-headed, we're trying to engage him. Just friendly. Mm-hmm. We're not like, hey, look at this asshole. We're just like, hey, man. Hi. Yeah. We're all back here. We're all going to go in front of the wolves. How's everything? How you doing? Wouldn't talk to us. Lit up a joint. Hey, can we have some? No. Wouldn't share his weed.
Wow.
And no one enjoyed him. And it was that thing, like you have, as a comedian, you'll have those nights where it's just, someone is not only doing something that people don't really want to watch, they're an asshole. Like, that combination.
There's two stories come to mind of it. Yeah, you'd have to work with these people that were just like, how are we? Mm-hmm. I had to work. I'm not going to say these people's names because they might still be in the business, but like one guy, we were in Greenville, South Carolina or North Carolina, and it was so depressing. I literally tried to sleep as much as humanly possible.
Wow.
Like during the day, just like how little time can I be here awake?
Yeah.
And
most people I know did that with masturbation.
Yeah.
Like how many times they could get through the day. Yeah.
This
is a record.
This guy, he was featuring for me, and he would end his act by basically stripping. He was not a physically attractive person who would male strip.
I get it.
And that was the end of his act.
Mm-hmm. Which the only reason that worked for Chris Farley and the Chippendales thing, other than the bit of
right,
like he's a really good dancer.
Yes,
that's why it worked.
Yeah.
He could literally dolphin dive.
Yes, and
a tough thing for a large man.
This was before that. And
yes,
it was just
so bad.
And he had herpes.
I thought you meant like that's part of his act.
No, he had, and it was either because he left.
Hey, folks, just enormous.
Like he left like
thing on his lip.
No, but he had like there was all this medicine and we're sharing a condo.
Oh,
I'm not even I'm sharing a condo with this guy, and I go, "Is this stuff yours?" He goes, "Oh, I can't leave that. That's my herpes medication." and then I'm watching him trying to have sex with this young waitress who's like 18, 19 years old. Oh. And I literally, I just went to her. I said, don't sleep with him. He has herpes. If you sleep with him, make him wear condom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that enraged him. But
wait, you did that in front of him?
No, while he was on stage, but
he was like, hey, she turned cold or something like that. And you,
no, I think he knew I said it. I would have fought him. I didn't care.
Sure.
I would have happily fought him. But the interesting thing was what he did instead was, kept calling the booker of the show saying that they really had to flip the order because he was killing. And I was like, less time? Okay. Can you pull that off?
Wow.
I would love to do 20.
Yeah.
And just one night I was on stage and there was this lull and you could hear him on the phone in the kitchen in the middle of my lull going, I'm telling you, he can't follow me.
Oh my!
You heard that?
Yeah, I started laughing.
Oh my!
Because I was just like 3 more days and I leave.
Well,
2 more days and I leave.
And if you're getting that call as a club owner, like,
Yeah. No, I knew.
Desperation is a this guy sounds thirsty as fuck.
And that's the name of your special.
Yes. There you go.
Yeah. No, it was all like, but I was like, great. I would love it. I would love to get fired. Can I get fired?
Absolutely.
It'd be great. The other one was condo in Florida, working with this guy, like. First thing he does is like shows me a video that is on his cam. He traveled with a camcorder.
Okay.
And he showed me a video that his wife made of him. Like, yeah, this pretty blonde wife is like, miss you. Can't wait for you to come home. That's my wife. I'm like, okay, great. Awesome. First night, fuck some chick from the club.
Oh.
Which is fine with me. I don't care. But the next morning sees me and does this. I was a bad boy.
Ew.
Like, oh no, that's the first thing you did that really creeped me out.
Yeah. That's
just own it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or just don't.
Yeah,
share. Like that's been one of the most annoying things for me. Is the idea of this of a man club? I don't have a problem with a man club.
Yeah,
but like not yours. Yours fucking sucks,
Yeah, I
man.
don't like your man.
No. Like my bachelor party, we went to Temecula, wine country.
Sure.
Rented a house with a pool and hit wineries, and
Sure,
then went home
yeah.
and grilled.
Yeah.
No
Sure.
bars, and it was the best. And we all went to these wineries with a glamour shot of Kara with Kara in cursive. Everyone's like, "What the shit?" People were like, "What is your deal?" And people were like, "Oh my god, did she die?" Yeah, that's why we're partying. What are you talking about? But it's like that's my man club. You know what I mean?
That's
I'll tell
It's
you,
not.
that's so sweet.
that club, the one thing I remember about that club, the last club that I worked with, the next time I worked there, the feature was a scrappy young fella named Patton Oswalt.
Oh.
And
Yeah.
on the billboard, I still have a photo of it somewhere. It says Dana Gould and Potono Swalt. and
Potonos. If you wore like a little jaunty cowboy hat, that'd be perfect.
Yeah, he just knew how to live. Like he was so ahead of me in every aspect of it. I was like, I've been doing this longer. I should have it down.
Yeah.
And he just shamed me.
Well, I mean, you do. I mean, it's to be fair, you do seem like you have the demeanor of a guy who occasionally brought a briefcase to high school every once in a while.
I was gonna say, I don't
You know
see
what I mean?
you
So
using a
and
bathrobe.
as you got older, that's the grand thing about getting older. You go, oh, I can do that. I can do
Sure.
that, can I?
That's-
I don't have to do shit for an hour. I'm just going to watch this terrible movie or whatever you can
Yeah.
do because you're an adult. Whatever you want.
Yeah.
But it's some of us learn earlier.
Yeah. It's not a skill set.
Mm-hmm.
My family's Swedish, and like my mom will still call to make sure you're not wasting any part of your day.
Oh, boy.
Like the
Yeah,
idea
it is-
that there might
it
be
is an
someone
efficient
napping
culture.
somewhere. She
Yeah.
can't live with the idea that people might be napping, wasting an hour. What'd you get done today? That's what she calls almost every day. What'd you get done today? And I'm like,
But I'm like,
Amazing. Oh.
I'm like that, especially like my girlfriend's kids that are little. I was like, let's go to the park. Let's go to the park.
Yeah.
We're going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we were at this, there's this, I think it's on Smile. There's a Brian Wilson lyric that says, I'll probably mangle it a little bit. Sleep a lot, eat a lot, brush them like crazy, run a lot, jump a lot, never be lazy. And I was like, I would macrame that. Like,
Yeah.
That's a good motto.
It's
Just
all- I mean,
for kids. Just get out there and do crap. Get out there and
Yeah,
do crap.
like try to balance everything, but it's just like, you know, my wife and I go to like exercise classes. We have this app that finds classes wherever we are.
Yeah.
Whatever, depending on what we want to do, you put in the activities you want, and bing, you can go.
Yeah.
You know, punch a guy and bike. Whatever you know, like, and to you do that, you get to go out to eat on the weekends and eat a bunch of pasta, or you know, that kind of thing.
Sure.
You know, have some wine. It's all got to have balance, and that's always. That's when you're a kid. That's when you're grown up.
The weird thing was, so there's this park, and I'm with my two oldest daughters and the three little ones, and we all go to this park, and we're all running around. The little kids are real little, and they're running around. And my two oldest daughters are now 13 and 15. I point to the play structure, and I go, "That's where we used to play Little Mermaid." And they go, "What?" And they go, "Yeah, when you were like 4 and 5, or like 5 and 6." You would be the Little Mermaid and her boyfriend, and I would be Ursula, and I would put you on there, and I couldn't go up on the structure, and I would chase you up and down the structure, and we'd play the Little Mermaid. Like, no memory of it at all.
Wow.
No, I remember that, and I was like, no, we did it.
we did it. I put my time in.
It happened.
But it was like this. It's like getting punched in the chest. It's like, yeah, you didn't remember it. You were little. You're like, they're probably younger than I think. They're probably like 3 and 4 or something, or 3 and 5. And I'm like, but I remember it.
Yeah.
It was a big thing for me.
Well, look at
Like,
look at
no, you can. What I'm saying is, until your kid's like 8, you can just leave them in a room.
I don't remember.
Well,
They don't have
at
any memory of
least this is like a good memory that you still have, and you're like, oh, but it's a really special thing. You forgot.
And they took it from me.
But what you're not doing is going, remember when you were 3? You were a real bitch. You're still holding on to something your daughter said when she was 3.
Yeah.
You hurt my feelings really
I
badly.
had to clean up your shit.
Look, I know you're 27 now, but I know you remember. Don't act like, Dad, I don't remember that.
I don't.
I wanted to be Little Mermaid one time, but you always made me be Ursula, and I just felt like that was very
It
unfair.
made me feel fat.
Yeah. You used to poke my stomach and say I was Santa Claus, and I let you bitch. But yeah, they don't remember that stuff.
Unless you have an autistic kid, and then like with Calvin, he remembers everything, and to a creepy degree where he'll be like, remember when I was 2 and we went to that Mexican restaurant and you spilled your water, and then when the waitress came, she thought I spilled it, and then you didn't clear that up.
Wow.
And I'm like, I don't remember. Well, that happened, and you didn't tell her.
I'm speaking I'm probably speaking a little out of turn here. I don't know your kids, but are you sure he's autistic or just very Swedish? Is he very much like your mother?
That's very
Everything's
true.
exact.
That actually could be part of it.
And what was your job for Playboy?
I was producing video and like writing video content for them.
For the Playboy channel?
Yeah, for Playboy.com. Playboy channel is actually a TV channel that was just a porn channel that licensed the name to slap on their like B-grade porn.
That's what my friend produces shows for them. Matt Weinhold.
Oh, for Playboy TV?
Yeah. And he has a really cool show. It's basically, he goes to Baltimore and John Waters hosts old drive-in porn movies. Like old early 70s drive-in porn, and talks about, this girl was such and such. It's
that's actually kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's really, he's basically the like it's like AMC, but with old like porn. It's
the stuff I was doing was just like salacious internet video where they would be like, we want to broaden our audience. Like right now, we're only hitting like the 14 to like 70-year-old male demographic. Like we want to try something different. And I'm like, well,
14 to 70 is a pretty good.
I mean, not bad. I think
14 and 70.
Yeah, probably exactly. Either one who actually thought Playboy was a place to see naked women.
Right.
And so when we would try and do funny things that like involved men, like the higher ups, like chief content people would be like, do we want men in the videos? Like we feel like it'll put our audience off. It's like, well, if you're trying to expand your audience, like you don't want. They can't just be women like jumping up and down in slow motion all day.
Yeah.
But I think to this day that's still what they're doing.
And and there's it still is a magazine, right?
Yeah, it is. It is, and they actually just had their first trans playmate. Recently.
Well, but they don't show anything.
No, they went back to nude. So, like in March of 2016, they said, "Hey, we're done with nude." And
is this a post-op or a pre-op?
I'm not sure. I have not seen the spread. So
interesting choice of words.
Yeah, exactly. It's before, like right in March, they were trying to do
that's great.
In March when they went on nude, they're trying to say, like, look, man, like we get it. We don't have to objectify women anymore. We'll just do it without the nipples. But then, like, we're
going to objectify women for their minds.
Yeah, I don't know what it was because they were still half naked. But then they got so many letters from like older, lifelong subscribers who were like, "This is nonsense. Like, why am I paying money for this? I pay for like the nude women, blah blah blah." And it was only like 5 people. Like the subscriber base is so low now. It's like, I'm not sure how much longer it can be sustained. But
there's an adult actress who starred in like the 80s named Nina Hartley. And she's also like a nurse. And I did some podcast with her. And she's lovely. She was, like when I was in San Francisco, I was a substitute. I was on the Alex Bennett show a lot, which was a drive time morning show in San Francisco on Live 105, Modern Rock. And I would playing everything from Morrissey to the Smiths. And I would guest. I would sit in for him when he would be away or whatever. And I interviewed my share of adult actresses, adult film actresses, not adult actresses. Many of them, there's a spark in their eyes that you can only get from a lizard sunning itself on a rock. But Nina Hartley was completely normal and very engaging and really funny and sarcastic. I really enjoyed talking to her, and her boyfriend or a partner or husband was this guy named Ernest Green, who I used to see. It was weird. I used to see him at my grocery store a lot, and he would dress kind of like a Nazi. Like he looked like Schultz he was this big German guy, and he would always be like in combat boots and black pants and a black shirt. And I was like, who's that weird guy that looks like Otto Preminger? And then I met him and like, oh, I know you shop at the Mayfair Market on Bronson. He goes, yeah, how are you? And I said, what do you do? He goes, and he was the publisher of some magazine like Leg Show or some like niche market magazine. And I go, who even buys these now? If you have a phone,
right,
you don't need them. And he goes, we're a cheap date.
Right.
But he was really kind of like, they were both very affable and kind of like,
circumspect about the whole.
We're a cheap date. My dad used to get Penthouse. which was
classy.
Which you don't want. No, it's not classy. I don't know if you've ever seen Blend.
Oh, I have. I have no class. So.
It's like what Playboy was to the swinger philosophy, Penthouse was to cold cuts. Jesus Christ. 14 was not a good age to be exposed to all that stuff.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see with Mr. Hefner deceased, if that will go on or if that whole empire will kind of fall out.
Well, I think his younger son is running it now, so we'll see where he takes it.
What is his daughter was running it for a while too?
Yeah, but now I think it's his son Cooper who is running it all.
That's the great thing about the media. It is the Wild West now. Like there really aren't any rules. That's the whole point behind venture capital is like, well, let's see if this works.
Yeah.
Let's try and see if this works, which is what you guys benefited from. And it allows people for their voice to be heard that otherwise didn't have a platform. So talk a little bit, Anna, about Ethnically Ambiguous.
Yeah, it's a podcast I do with my co-host, Shireen Younes, who's Syrian.
Who refused to come here today.
Yeah, she's a busy woman. She works long hours on commercials, big commercials that she gets a bunch of free stuff from. So it's hard to get her to come do this.
Is she a director or an actress or a
stylist? She directs a lot of short films, but she mostly...
Is she directing commercials?
No, she's mostly like PAing and doing set stuff.
Because that's where the goddamn money is, trust me.
Yeah.
I was at my friend's house who runs an advertising agency, and it's just crazy money.
Oh yeah, advertising. There's so
advertising.
Much
By the way, advertising is where all the money is.
Yeah, that's why director of Moonlight, Barry Jenkins, was like, because he's big in advertising.
Yeah,
and he was like, he lived in this beautiful home in San Francisco, and was just like, I'm really glad I won that director, but like, if it hadn't have happened, I'd be completely okay.
Yeah, it's people shooting close-ups of Tic Tacs.
That's
where all the money is.
And you make millions from that.
And this guy was like, I was at dinner at his house. He goes, "Do you know who DJ Khaled is?" Right? And I was like, "Nope, never heard of him," which I hadn't. And he goes, "Well, he lives next door."
Wow, that's amazing. DJ Khaled's whole career was revived by Snapchat.
Yeah.
Little known
know
thing.
who it is.
Oh, you don't?
No, I don't know who it is.
Dana.
I don't. Isn't it better that I'm honest about who I am? Wouldn't it be kind of sad?
Yeah, you're like,
sure, man, I know him. I'm on Snapchat all the time.
He's the best DJ.
Yeah, he's the best. He's of all the DJ Khaleds, he's my favorite. Yeah. At a certain point, you kind of stop. I'm 53. And I like to think I'm very immature for my age. But in terms of like music and stuff like that, at a certain point, you just kind of like, that's okay. Yeah, that's all right.
I feel like I've hit that point.
You might have. What are you in your what?
I'm
what
27. Yeah, and I already feel like I'm like, okay.
You got 9 more years.
When people are like, have you heard this new song or like rap song on the radio? I'm like, I'm just gonna.
I'm like, I don't even listen to the radio.
But I heard, I heard it 10 years ago when it was something else, but the same thing. Right. It's like that Steve Martin bit about like the greatest thing about getting older is you get prejudiced. not against people, but it's about hey, let's all try this new thing. Right. Sorry, we're closed. Right. You just like, okay. Like the last like new album I bought, quote unquote, is by this guy Chris Price, which I really liked. It just came out, but I like it because it sounds like Harry Nilsson. It's like, I like that.
Right.
My friend emailed me last night, and Emma Arnold, who's on this podcast a lot, she's like, I'm sitting around eating brownie mix. What's a good movie to watch? I said, well, have you ever seen Sweet Smell of Success or A Face in the Crowd? She's like, something from this century, Grandpa? Oh, you wanted the talkie, huh?
We have a lot of autistic people on that side of the family who are very efficient, have great memories, and they don't like a lot of rest. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Can I tell the Disneyland story?
Oh, please, yes.
And I went with them. Took her kids to Disneyland, and I went down with them.
And you each have 3, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're down at Disneyland, and Calvin was getting a little. He needed a break.
Yeah, he gets stimmy. He just overstimulated, and then he starts doing a lot of flapping and
So he needed a break. So I say, I know the best place. There's this quiet little place in Disneyland where they just have the Star Wars spaceships, and it's just like a little museum. And I go, it's right around here. We'll go there and we'll just take a break. And I can't find it. I'm looking around.
Oh, wow.
And Calvin, who's taller than I am.
He's 6 foot.
He's
14. He's 6 foot. He's a giant.
Boy.
Yeah.
He throws his arm around my shoulder, and there's an African-American security guard. And Calvin goes, yo, my man, can I ask you a question?
Oh, my God. Buddy.
and I just, the color drains from my face, and God bless the security guard. He just, clearly he looked at me and just started laughing. Like he got some version of the full picture immediately.
Yes. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And I was like, he's like, it's all right. What are you looking for?
That's great.
Yeah.
Yo.
Oh my God.
It was like Peter Rieger in an Animal House. Otis!
Yeah. Or Spalding, the shitty kid on Caddyshack. Of course it's good weed. I bought it from a Negro.
Oh my God.
It's one of the most perfect lines. It just is. I mean, that's the pissant version.
Yeah.
Calvin is obviously a nice, good-hearted kid. Spalding is not. Spalding is a shit.
How are you, Senator?
We went to Atlanta. Dana was nice enough to. Calvin's really into horror movies.
Oh, cool.
And he invited us down for the taping of Stand Against Evil, so he could see how it was made.
Or as everyone else in the country calls it, Stan versus Evil, Stan fighting monsters, Stanley Monster Scary Show.
There's a monster.
Stand Against Weevils.
Stand Against Evil. Ash fighting the Vampire Slayer. Buffy Ash.
Scrubs.
What's the name of your show? Scrubs. Monster Scrubs.
Monster Scrubs.
Oh. Sure your lead loves that.
You're the scrubbiest.
But when we landed in Atlanta, it was a long flight and we got delayed, and Calvin and I almost got separated on the flight, and it was like kind of a stressful day for him. He has a hard time traveling sometimes. And so he's very tired. He's doing a lot of stimming, and when he gets tired, his Tourette's kind of starts to go a little out of control. So we're waiting for our luggage, and I'm like, I can see like we've hit our limit. We need to get into a car. And I'm just waiting for the luggage. I'm like, just sit here. They lost our luggage. So we're like waiting in line. And then he is standing there, and he all of a sudden just goes, man, black people are great. In the Atlanta airport, full soto, like full volume.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, oh. And he's like, I love black people. They are great. God. And he just like starts presenting this dissertation on how he wishes there were more black people in Idaho. Man, it would be great. And I'm like, oh God.
Yeah. Wow.
Stop. And actually I have a trick for that is, suckers. I have suckers in my purse. And so I'll be like, do you need a sucker? And I'll give him a lollipop.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll give him a lollipop. And then he's like, oh, okay.
Nice.
And he doesn't know that's when he's getting racist, autistic racist.
Even if it's positive.
Even if it's positive, we gotta get a lollipop in there as soon as possible. And Ron Funches, our sons are the same age. And,
interesting.
Yeah. And his son is autistic. And we've talked about like, why are autistic people so racist? Like there is really often something there.
But he wasn't being sarcastic. He was
and that's like the funny thing with him. He was so genuine. And he even was like, to say it was like, man, this is great. I love how many things black people can do with their hair. And I was just like, oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah. And I'm like, let's talk about it in the car. That's a really interesting thing to discuss.
Yeah, so much of what I've seen with what I've learned from autism is just an unawareness of what we call decorum.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not bad.
No.
It's just, there's not a lot of filter.
He is the sweetest, like most generous, warm-hearted person in the world. Like he's never been mean to anyone. I've never seen him be crappy or mean to anyone. He's just all enthusiasm. He's like a Labrador kind of, but like a really intelligent Labrador.
I'd say the opposite would be Mike Pence posting about MLK and what he gave to all of us.
Yes.
Like, that thing's the most disingenuine. You don't like him. You're an asshole. You walked out of a football game on purpose for the press because you knew there'd be guys sitting out the anthem.
It's all.
Couldn't give a shit about civil rights.
No, it's all. That end of it is all awful.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing about there's one thing I'll tell you this about Atlanta, but the first thing that's interesting about Calvin is Calvin's 14, he's 6 feet tall, and he's really a handsome kid.
Yeah, he's pretty
really
gorgeous.
good looking kid, but he's not very emotional.
No.
He's pretty Vulcan.
He's pretty monotone.
So what I'm saying is
that's pretty
what I'm saying is,
autism.
women throw themselves at him.
Oh my God.
It's like this tall, handsome kid who doesn't give a shit.
Yeah. He's
tall,
mysterious.
gorgeous.
Yeah, women are on him like children's art to a
totally
first
emotionally
boy.
unavailable.
Sure,
yeah. And he looks so much older too. That's what happened on our flight was they were trying to put us on different flights, and I was like, no, he's 14, because I was like, he's autistic, he can't travel without me, and they're like, he'll be fine. I'm like, he's 14, and they were like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, because they thought he was like 22. And because he's so big.
6 feet tall.
Yeah. And so like women, I'll see women like talking to him and he's like, I don't like shoes with ties. And they're like, oh, well, that's fine. Like he's just not paying any attention.
Yeah.
Although he did have a girlfriend very briefly and he got broken up with the other day. And it was a big moment for me. He was telling me like about getting broken up with, and he was really, he was sad, not really showing it, but kind of just talking to me about it a little. And as he was telling me, and I'm kind of empathizing, in my heart, I was like over the moon, because when he was little, they basically were like, he will never have a normal life. Like he won't be in public school. He won't be able to, like he was serious enough when he was little that it was like, we won't ever have these milestones. So when he was like, I got broken up with this girl, she said she doesn't like me. She says I talk too loud. And I was like, in my heart, I was like, oh my God, this is so regular.
Yeah,
like, it's just this regular thing. It was so...
a signpost.
Yeah, like
life.
you got
That's
broken
all.
up with. This is so great.
Completely legitimate reason to get broken up with. I can tell you that.
And that is a good reason.
Yeah, people have had that. That's happened to a lot of normal people. Oh, sure.
Well, and a lot of 14-year-old boys talk like a Dashiell Hammett character when she broke up with me on a Sunday night. Said I talked too loud. Crazy dame.
I was watching. My daughter had to watch Double Indemnity yesterday for her film class. That's why go to school. She's 15. She has a film class. Watch it, and there's this great line. You forget like Double Indemnity. Written by Billy Wilder and Raymond Chandler, based on a book by James M. Cain.
Yeah,
it's like Jesus Christ.
That's a lot.
And one of the lines is where Edward G. Robinson is trying to get Fred McMurray to quit being a salesman and come to work for him. And he goes, not you. You're a salesman. You're a glad hand or a backslapper. Knock on the door and lay out a long line of monkey talk.
I love amazing writing that just jumps out. There was a line.
That's Double Indemnity is full of it. It's like that and The Sweet Smell of Success.
I've had this sentence stuck in my head about this old man. He's older, but it's funny when you read like old books. It's like he's in his 50s, close to death.
Oh, I know. When I write scripts now, he's old. He's 82.
There you go. But it was like. He's sure his wife has had a few affairs and he doesn't really care. And it'd been 15 years since a woman had looked at him in a challenging way. And I was like, that is so genius. Genius. Cause that is how a woman looks at you when she's interested, where it is like a challenge, like, hello, that kind of thing. Where she's kind of leaving herself open to you emotionally and socially. Kind of thing. And I was like, what the fuck? I wish I could write
love
a
that
sentence
line. Yeah, that's great.
There's another great line in Double Indemnity where he's drinking some iced tea and he goes, pretty good iced tea. Some of that bourbon might get it up off its feet.
Well, it is 11 o'clock a.m. Those fucking days.
I've only had a pack of cigarettes and it's not even lunch.
I literally admire that. Where it's like if I had like a scotch at lunch, that's the rest of my day.
Yeah, you're done.
I can't do anything. I'm not saying I'm going to drink about 9 glasses of water and go to sleep early. It's like if I drink at night, sure, I can have a few, but it's just.
Have you ever seen Sweet Smell of Success?
No.
Oh, that is groaning with patois.
Okay.
It is written by Cliff Odets.
Yeah.
And it's Burt Lancaster plays this brutal publicist that can make and break people in New York. Tony Curtis and Burt Lancaster.
Right, yeah.
And that is there's a couple of lines in there. Burt Lancaster plays J.J. Hunsaker. It's based on Walter Winchell.
Yes.
And he goes, and Tony Curtis is Sidney Falco, who's just like a PR flack. And they're talking to somebody in Sydney, sitting next to Burt Lancaster. And he goes, Sidney here. He knows the deal. Why, he knows if he ever went near my sister, I'd take a baseball bat to his head. Isn't that right, Sidney? That's right, JJ. That's the one. The cat's in the bag and the bag's in the river. That's a great.
That's good.
Yeah. Tons of lines like that. I'd hate to take a bite out of you. You're a cookie full of arsenic. That's a line of that movie. what is ethnically ambiguous? And I mean, I have an idea, but I think it's a great.
It's a podcast
idea.
about being brown in America, and we talk a lot about like politics in the Middle East because it barely gets covered. We talk about our experiences growing up with immigrant parents.
She's Syrian and you're Iranian.
Yes.
Right.
So we kind of
First generation, second generation?
We're both first generation.
Right.
Both our parents
are immigrants.
Immigrants.
Right.
So we get into a lot of good stuff, but we like aren't both the smartest people. So it's very casual talk about like politics of us being like, oh my God, and like trying to figure it out as we go. So it's fun. We get a lot into like, I'm like aggressively anti Saudi Arabia. So we get into a lot of that stuff. Like I have like my corner where I go deep into all the terrible things they do, and then she goes deep into like what Bashar al-Assad is doing to Syria. And
I thought he was great. No, I'm kidding.
Let me tell you.
Talk about like a comic book villain.
Right.
Yeah. It's like, I do wonder, every generation thinks that they're the generation that's witnessing the collapse of the human race.
Right.
And, I've said this before. It's like, I'm not saying the world is ending, but it's definitely not starting. Things really are terrible. And I guess they always were in different forms, and it's certainly things are much better now than they were during the Crusades. But it is maddening. And what I think is great about Ethnically Ambiguous is, and I don't say this, I say this as somebody who has to catch themselves, is the well-intentioned myopia of Americans.
Yeah.
That by the very nature that we are basically an island, although we are attached to North America and South America, we're very much an island, and certainly a cultural island. And so many people have never been out of the country. And the thing that always grabs me about this is the concept of American exceptionalism that no presidential candidate can dismiss. Obama tried it and quickly self-corrected. And it's basically the belief that we are God's favorite country.
Right.
Right.
God, who is timeless, and America, which is under 300 years old. But he's been waiting for us.
Just look down.
And the belief that, no, believe it or not, other countries think they're exceptional. People in China think they're the greatest nation on earth. People in Russia think they're the greatest nation on earth.
That's why we have the Olympics.
And people don't understand. Well, no, we're the best. And I went to a very, 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 very good public school before Reagan and the tax revolt of the 1980s gutted public schools because people didn't want to pay higher property taxes to fund them. And there are many mitigating factors about unions that you can talk about till you're blue in the face. But I got a great public school education. And I was taught that. We're number one. We're number one in everything. Everybody loves us. We came, the Indians moved over, and everything was great.
They're like, oh, yeah, you guys will probably take care of it. Yeah, we'll go over here.
No, and there are people that don't. It's like, no, we are a country.
Yeah, I had such a weird upbringing because my mom is from Japan, and she was born in like 2 years after the atomic bomb was dropped. And my dad is black and just very cynical about America. So
why?
Yeah, I know, right? It's crazy. Between being black and Japanese, like there's no history of mistreatment of those people in this country. On one end, like at school or my friends, you'd get that like American exceptionalism vibe, and then at home, like then my dad's like, just trying to bum me out with history or whatever.
Yeah.
And then like my mom being like, well, it was also terrible growing up right after the bomb. And I'm like, where the fuck do I fit in this thing? Yeah. And it's
But that's kind of a blessing that you never had that delusion.
Yeah. Now my girlfriend just thinks I'm cynical because I don't like holidays and stuff. Cause no one's like, she's like, it's whatever day. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck that is. Like my mom's an immigrant and my dad's a cynical artist. So like,
I still will not say Merry Christmas. I still say Happy Winter Halloween. That's what I think.
Yeah, we only celebrate Kwanzaa. So, yeah.
Do you really only?
Nah. I remember we tried it though.
But Kwanzaa but the origin of Kwanzaa isn't even, it's not Black Christmas.
No.
It's like a farming holiday.
Yeah, it's very different. I remember like even the way, like, I think it was like 92 when my grandparents were like, y'all heard of Kwanzaa? Like, should we try this? And it was like, I don't even know if we were doing it right. We were wearing like kufis and like all kinds of shit. And I was like, yo, where are the fucking presents at? And like, they weren't there. So I'm like, hey, I'm good on Kwanzaa, but so I'll stick with Christmas.
Yeah, I never, because my parents are Muslim, or my mom's very devoutly Muslim. My dad is secular, but he allows my mom to have her time. Right. But it's God. Really like that. Yeah. But we never celebrated Christmas at all. We didn't celebrate most holidays. We celebrated Iranian New Year, which is in like March. So like that was my big month. I was like, March, yeah.
But didn't you guys know that that's not when the new year starts? I'm kidding.
We know nothing.
I'm kidding. Hearing the president talking about, and we're going to say Merry Christmas again. He's like, yeah, he's a 70-year-old Fox News viewer. And it's basically, we're not going to change. Yeah, you are.
Yeah, right.
You know, guess what's the one inevitable thing? Change.
Yeah.
It's just a cultural thing. Like, change happens. You know, people don't like to admit they fight it really hard because it's basically, it's a reminder of their mortality. If you have said Merry Christmas all your life and now you have to say Happy Holidays, it's just a reminder that you're going to die. Right. You know,
that's all he's thinking.
You know, things change. You know, like, well, how can marriage be with the guy and a guy? Well, because it used to be ways that parents traded land.
Right.
Right. You know, kids used to be chits that their parents traded in exchange for land and armies.
Like, we got to diversify our crops.
In some places that still happens.
Yeah, exactly. You know, traditional marriage used to be involving armor.
Yeah. I sat in when I was in Iran earlier this year. I sat in with a negotiation for my young cousin who was 17 to marry a 32-year-old. And the whole time, my dad had to literally be like, don't say a goddamn word if you're going to be in this meeting. And I was like, okay. And I didn't really know.
Did they know each other?
Kind of. But they were first, the parents come and then they present the children. It's so weird. And then I had to sit there and be like, okay, I just want to strangle everyone in the room. Like, no, she gets to make her own choices. She's 17. Yeah. But they were just like,
have you seen any Disney movie about a princess? Yeah. She has to follow her heart.
Yeah, but it's
fine. This is a good first act where she meets the person she's not going to be with.
It really is like just the business interaction. Where
when does
like,
Eddie Murphy as a dragon come in?
Yeah, right. Save the day.
Down to literally like, okay, and where will they be living? And what is the house number? And okay, so they will be there. All right. How long will they be there? Okay, good. All right. What is she going to do when he's at work and she's at home? And it's insane that you're like, it's 2017. This was happening in February. And they were like, okay. And when I was like trying to talk to my cousin whose daughter was being arranged off, I was like,
wow,
what, so why him? And they were like, oh, his family's really rich. So why not? And I was like, ugh, kill me now.
But there was no like blending of like the family business or anything, right? It was purely just for her.
But you know that, but that also happens voluntarily. I'll give you an example. No one made Melania Trump marry Donald Trump.
No.
But she didn't marry him because he has great hair. If you look at Harvey Weinstein's wife, it's like, how did this go wrong? How did, it's like, yes, you can have your parents arrange you to be married to a rich person, or you can also go, well, he's rich.
Yeah.
You know, that happens a lot. They're rich.
Yeah.
America. And in America also, that we have this cultural weird belief that, and guys will marry a woman they have nothing in common with, but she's beautiful. She'll take me. I'll do it.
Well, I think it's also back then people just popped speed all the time. You know, and like you like wonder when they talk so fast, it's because they would shoot each other up with these, you know, what they thought was like for health. But it's like, you're on coke, man.
For health. I'm taking health tablets. Yeah. I had a health phosphate, and then I went, and you go to the gym and you just like throw a giant ball back and forth.
Yeah. My heart rate is 300 over 185. You're going to die.
You see people in those old movies, they go to the gym and they're all in gray sweatshirts and gray sweatpants, and they're just throwing a giant ball, the medicine ball.
Yeah, there's no real
or standing on that thing with the belt that would jiggle.
Well, and the guys that were like looked at like physical like specimens, like Greek, like he's built like Apollo.
Fat guy.
They were just smooth.
Yeah,
like there was no definition at all. They're just smooth and shiny.
Yeah, like Paul Newman.
Their waists were up super high. Well, and Paul Newman was like super skinny. I'm sure people were like, he's too skinny. And it's like, no, he looks amazing.
Did you see the last Coen Brothers movie, Hail?
Yeah, Hail Caesar.
It was called Hail Caesar.
Yeah.
Yeah. The the scene that was basically the sailors tap dancing.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be from whatever movie, Anchors Away or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But you look at those things, there's two things that they didn't do that people like Gene Kelly did. Like one, those guys were incredibly muscular, but they weren't ripped.
No.
Like they had so much more fluid movement. And Gene Kelly did all that shit smiling.
Yes.
Like these guys like,
oh yeah.
And you look at Gene Kelly and it's like superhuman.
Yeah.
But like without a shirt, looked like a regular guy.
Well, and we do live in kind of that era where everyone grows up believing if you can do something like that, you got to show out. You got to really like do flourish and stuff. And Gene Kelly is like, make it look easy.
Yeah.
You watch him and you're like, oh, I could do that. I could float. I could float around.
Yeah.
I got American in Paris. I can float around. And you watch that dance sequence, you're like, Jesus Christ.
No, he's and like be like, is it Donald O'Connor? Is he has that? There's a scene in Singing in the Rain, and I think it's Donald O'Connor, and you watch it, and it's this crazy thing, and he wasn't even in the top bill.
Oh, make him laugh?
Yeah, make him laugh.
Where he runs up the wall and shit?
Yeah, and it's one take.
Yeah.
Half the song is one fucking take.
I watched that as a kid and was like, wow.
Yeah, and he's like the third bill dancer in the movie. He's like not even the top guy.
Yeah. And
it's insanity.
Well, that was the era where if someone could do that, they could be a star. Now we have stars and they try to make them be able to do that.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't go together. I mean, like you watch La La Land, they're not great singers, they're not great dancers, but they're stars and it's like they're both incredibly talented, but it's kind of like, well, can we just find diamonds in the rough and take a couple people off Dancing with the Stars. The people that make stars look passable like dancers. Take those people that are ridiculous and put them in those movies. Have these sequences again.
It was just a different genre. But you look at the way movies have changed the better. I'll give you a great example. The Shape of Water.
I still haven't seen that one.
What's amazing is like you watch The Creature from the Black Lagoon and you think it's good, but they don't fuck.
Now.
I told my dad that's what it was based. He's like, I can't see it now. I love The Creature from the Black Lagoon. And I'm like, what does that mean, Dad? You don't want to see him have sex? No.
But it works. It absolutely. I was sitting. I've had this thought a couple times. Like I'm watching essentially a remake of The Creature from the Black Lagoon, but it has fucking in it. Well, and it's great.
I told my wife about the movie. She's like, "What is it?" And I was explaining all the stuff. She's like, "Okay." And I got to the point where the woman's mute, and my wife was like, "Fuck that movie." I'm not seeing it. They made her mute. Seriously, no. And I was like, I kind of see your point. I know a good idea. I know a bad idea.
She doesn't speak, and neither does he.
Ah, okay. He doesn't make some kind of whale noise.
He does, but they can't verbally communicate. And there's and I won't ruin it, but she had her
vocal cords cut.
Yeah, and these come into play later.
Oh, okay.
These, no, it's a beautiful fairy tale.
Just laughing at the idea if he makes noises that are just not good to listen to. Like a hippo braying.
Just like after this, it's really beautiful, and they finally consummate their relationship. And he turns to the camera and just goes, womp womp. Oh yeah!
Oh my god!
Or that's
the one noise
they're swimming and about to have sex, and then she sees he has like fish lady pinups, like real dark, weird porn where they're using dildos on each other and shit.
Hooks everywhere.
Hooks everywhere. Hooks. Gutted fish everywhere hanging out. They look like. Yeah. Is that a close up of a flower? No.
Oh.
Oh man. I don't see how we can go past that. This comes from fiction and culture. We have the soulmate belief. Like somewhere out there is the one that you are destined to be with. And once you meet, you'll be happy forever without trying.
Right.
Which is every movie. And and it's all horseshit. And the other belief is like once you're married, it's happily ever after. And in fact, no, that's the beginning of a lot of work.
Right.
Yeah. And I don't say that in a negative, cynical way.
Right.
It's just like your marriage is a relationship that you must constantly work on, like every other relationship in your life.
They have it completely inverted where the dating is the hard part in movies, where it's like there's constant misunderstandings. Whereas like the dating in reality, when you like fall in love with someone, is like the easiest thing. It's so easy that you like wake up 5 months later and you're like married in an unhappy marriage. Like, and then the hard work begins.
Yeah. So what's that smell?
Right.
My shit. Your shit smells. What? No. Yeah. It's like,
I think about like even when I was younger, that when I would date, if it got difficult, I was like, she's not the one because it's difficult. You know what I mean? I'm like, that's the problem. And then even right now, like in my relationship, it was like the best relationship I've ever been in. And a lot of it has to do with the realization that I'm actually growing from it. Because I'm like, I can't be a sloppy asshole all the time.
Right.
And I'm willing to be like, wait, hold up. Like, let's not do the same thing. And you start to sort of like see the value differently than sort of like, I need something that's just like a cruise. Like I can be on cruise control the whole time, and you begin to sort of value the sort of self-development that goes along
it's hard.
with it.
It's really good if you know how to be alone before you find someone. You know, if of all the time you spend single is looking for a partner, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah.
Like I thought I was done. You know, I had been in I got divorced, and then I was in a pretty significant relationship, and then I dated some people, and then I was like, yeah, I'm good. I'm done. and the first thing I did was grow a beard. As John Hossnieh would say, your beard is a genetic symbol that you're done. That women can see your beard and go, okay, I don't have to deal with it. I'm out of here.
Must be so confusing for them now. Because
it is now.
You're like, I love a man with a beard.
Yeah, no, it's very hard now that they've become trendy, because it used to be the imprimatur of the surrendering middle-aged man. And I was really cool with it for like about a year. I got a lot of work done. And I was like, no, I'm fine. I'm good. I had a good run. I had a good run. Yeah, I had a good run. I can coast another 40 years. I have kids. I'll never be alone.
Right.
So where can people find Ethnically Ambiguous?
It's on the Feral Audio Network, so it's on iTunes.
And how often do you do Ethnically Ambiguous?
It's once a week. It's topical.
And what was tell me about the last episode.
Oh, last episode was our Halloween episode, so we went into like really creepy like Taliban murder locations and other ghost things from the Quran.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, we really creeped ourselves out. This next episode we're going to do is going to be all about Saudi Arabia, because there's some good stuff going on over there right now. I get excited.
Well, there's a big, I wouldn't say a purge, but there's something going on in the royal family, is there not?
Music montage
it's like a
from
very
a mob
interesting
film.
view of if you put a 32-year-old in charge of a country that has too much money, and see what happens.
Isn't Saudi Arabia basically Logan Paul as a country?
Yeah, at this point.
I like how you don't know DJ Khaled. You're like, what about the everyday bro guy who's like by far the worst creature on earth?
Yeah, I have daughters in their early teens.
And do they like Logan Paul?
They're aware of him. I think they think he's stupid, but not lame.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah.
They're really, and they're pretty good kids. They're into, they like Stranger Things.
But I'm sorry to tell you, nobody was cosplaying Ghostbusters in 1984.
People can listen to the Daily Zeitgeist on a daily basis.
Monday through Friday.
And where would they go for that? Daily Z?
Yeah, just search Daily Z on any your podcasting listening
it's on iTunes. You can find
function of choice. We have our own website, dailyzeitgeist.com, where we source all of the stuff it sounds like we're just bullshitting about. We actually have sources.
And you're prepared for soon someone will come to you to do it as a television show. So start to think about that.
Yeah.
How old are you?
33.
So Comedy Central will come to you for, we need young versions of you.
Right.
Yeah.
Like a pristine 21-year-old.
The kids from
and
Stranger
an ethnically
Things.
ambiguous co-host.
Yeah, yeah. Generic, ethnic, gender ambiguous co-host. Yeah. What they need to host the show is Tilda Swinton from Minority Report, but the color of a walnut. That's what they. No one will know what it is. It'll appeal to everybody.
A beige precog.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That show will be on the Precog Network.
Precog Network, yeah.
I have friends that have TV shows on networks I've never heard of. I'm on Fanta, the Fanta soda. They have a network. I have a detective series on the Fago Network. It's the Insane Clown Posse Mysteries. The Insane Clown Posse is now living in a quiet New England town solving murders with Angela Lansbury.
The Great Malenko Mysteries, as they would call it.
Oh man. And a Hossnieh?
Hossnieh.
I'm going to be a studio executive in the 40s. And a husband. I love it.
Husby.
You know, it'd be a good name, and it's still like ethnically right on target for you. Hertfordshire.
Other podcasts reach for the sky. Dana Gould Hour. We barely try.
This has been the Dana Gould Hour, brought to you by the Internet. Music by Andy Paley, with Jake Posner behind the board. Produced by Jeff Fox. Graphic design and web production by Spencer Hunt and Segan Friend. Sound editing and post-production by Jalinda Palmer and Joe Napolitano. Hey, if you like the show, why don't you drop us a line at show@danagould.com. Tom Kenny speaking.
I'm a DJ, I'm a person, I'm a singer, I love to sing and DJ. Boom! Peace out! You want me? Peace out!